Okay, so thank you to the public. We're at a closed session now. Meeting going on, and what I'd like to do is open to the public now. We'll be opening to the public at the regular meeting in a few minutes as well. You can speak at one or the other or both.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest we read that reso in case anyone from the public wants to ask any questions?
So over my objection, the council is introducing one additional resolution, number 154.
Mayor, we need a motion to come out of closed session.
You have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any objections? Okay. So can I have a motion to open to the public?
Well, do we need to add the resolution first that's being added to the agenda?
Yes, I think that's a good idea, and Debbie, Lizette should read it.
Okay. Want me to read it first?
Yes, so the public should know that it's what it says.
Okay. Whereas at the October 4th, 2020 special meeting, this council voted in favor of two settlements, one with Fair Share Housing Center and one with 800 Sylvan Avenue. And whereas, like most settlements, certain actions must be taken in furtherance of those settlements by the borough and its attorneys. Whereas the settlement agreements and consent orders entered by the court in connection with the same expressly prohibit the borough from funding the planning board in connection with, among other things, the filing of any appeal or action seeking to reverse, overturn, or otherwise affect the settlement agreements. Whereas the planning board has submitted objections to the terms of the consent order entered by the court in connection with the settlement agreement with 800 Sylvan Avenue LLC. And whereas the planning board is an entity of the borough and has only those powers provided to it by law under Municipal Land Use Law NJSA 40:55D-1 or by ordinance. Whereas the power of the Englewood Cliffs Planning Board have been curtailed by order of Judge Farrington dated on or about April 17, 2020, and have not yet been reinstated. And whereas actions of the planning board to undermine or challenge resolutions or settlement made by the mayor and council are by their very nature contrary to the specific expressed interest of the borough, and whereas it is possible that the subsequent acts by the planning board seeking to reverse or overturn the settlement agreements could result in dire consequences for the borough, including but not limited to granting 800 Sylvan Avenue LLC the right to build 600 units at 800 Sylvan Avenue, 150 more units more than what was provided for in the settlement agreement. And whereas the planning board in a special meeting of the board hired special counsel to represent it, and such special counsel was hired without any typical process in place to protect the finance of the borough, included but not limited to not utilizing the RFP process, passing a resolution with proper not to exceed limits or proper background and conflict of interest checks. And whereas as a result of the hiring and the incredible amount of fees already billed by the special counsel, the planning board has far exceeded its budget from the borough. And now therefore be it resolved that the planning board is put on notice of these terms of the settlement agreements and consent order referenced herein, and are advised that it is in the best interest of the borough and its residents that the planning board not take any actions, efforts, or attempt to undermine the challenge, the settlements, or consent orders. And be it further resolved that the planning board is on notice that the borough will not fund the legal or other professional fees expended or incurred by the planning board in furtherance of such actions. And be it further resolved that the finance office is directed not to pay any bills for any planning board attorneys without the express authority from the mayor and council. And be it further resolved that in order to implement the settlement agreement dated October 8, 2020, entered between the borough, Fair Share Housing Center, regarding the 100% municipally sponsored project in detail in paragraph 13 of the agreement, hereinafter municipally sponsored project of MSP, the professionals for the borough, including but not limited to Mr. Troutner, Mr. Serenian, Mr. Wunsch, Mr. Mistretta, Dr. Powell, Mr. Caucus, here and after collectively, the borough's professionals are authorized to take the following actions or such other actions as they may deem reasonably necessary to increase the likelihood that developers will submit proposal to develop the MSP and successfully compete for 9% tax credits, making a motion in the borough's existing declaratory judgment action, bringing a quiet title action, or taking such actions as council deems appropriate to eliminate any title issues with respect to the sites identified for the MSP, and working with the borough engineer to develop a plan to raise the building on the site the borough purchased for $1.9 million, and possibly on the community center site as well, which actions may include and not be limited to retaining an expert to investigate what is on the sites for the purposes of fashioning an RFP for a developer to clear the sites, issuing an RFP to obtain a developer to raise the buildings, and retain an expert to oversee the site clearing operation. Number 3, increase the likelihood of a developer winning the competition for 9% tax credits by authorizing the borough's professionals to support an RFP for the MSP that commits 80% of what is currently in the borough's trust fund and that is anticipated to be received by July 1, 2025, and that commits the borough to bond for what is anticipated to be received by July 1, 2020, subject to the borough's right to pay itself back for monies bonded with future payments to the trust fund. And number 4, authorize the professionals to prepare an ordinance to vacate Clendenin Road and to take such other measures as they deem appropriate so that the vacated road will become part of a larger parcel for the construction of the MSP, and to work with the master so that the vacation can be perfected at such time as the developer of the site needs the property to implement the MSP. And number 5, were to ensure sufficient sewer and water capacity for the MSP to ensure that the pipes for sewer and water are appropriately sized to enable the project to move forward, and work with the borough engineer to study shared parking arrangements can be made that can be included in the RFP so that the project would be more attractive to prospective developers. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the clerk, to each member of the planning board, Jeff Serenian, Tom Troutner, Albert Wunsch, all attorneys, and other professionals appointed by the planning board, and to the finance office.
So that resolution was provided to me, to William Wu, Councilman Wu, and Councilman Farrow at 6:39 p.m. So after our meeting started. Mr. Marinello, I know you like to hold things close to your vest, but I doubt very much that was the first draft and the only draft of that document. So that document was probably kicking around for days. If history predicts the future, the Democrats on council probably had seen that before. What you just read, Ms. Duffy, as nicely as you read it to the public, it's not the same thing as reading it for the public. I think this is another example of either the gamesmanship of the Democrats on council, giving a long resolution like that after the meeting has started, or just unprofessional conduct by Mr. Marinello, one or the other, maybe both. But I find it abhorrent to democracy that you guys would actually introduce such a resolution at 6:39 p.m. after our meeting started. The other thing I'd like to ask Mr. Marinello, while everybody's on and we're on the subject of introducing a new resolution, Mr. Marinello, you're asking in effect for the planning board to be defunded in certain ways by the council. And the planning board is a creature of statute with its own purpose for existing and for safeguarding the public. You're asking the council to pass something in terms of this resolution. Would you please give us a legal opinion that says that it's a resolution that is permitted by law to be passed and implemented by the council?
Sure, Mayor. First of all, let me start by correcting some of your misstatements. Nobody got that resolution until the same time that you got it. No Democrats, no matter how underhanded you want to make them sound, they did not get a copy of that resolution before the meeting.
Did they know it was coming before the
I
meeting?
don't think they did, Mr. Mayor. I didn't tell them it. It was something I was working on because the affordable housing attorneys asked us to do it.
Okay, so 6:39 PM is when we all got it, right?
Well, I don't know what the time was, but if you say so, yes.
Okay,
Either way, there's nothing improper about getting the resolution then, because the issues hadn't even been talked about in closed session yet. So either way, nobody's been denied any rights by having that happen. And so I don't see any problem with it.
well, the public doesn't have it. in
Well, the
writing.
public will be able to have it tomorrow once.
Well, right, but the public would like to ask questions perhaps about it
Which is
tonight,
why we read it.
which is not the same thing as having it in front of you like the other resolutions. And then my other question was, will you give us a legal opinion that basically says that the council is authorized to adopt and implement such a resolution to defund the planning board in part?
But nobody's defunding the planning board. The resolution simply says that the borough, which is the entity of which the planning board is a part, will not fund efforts by the planning board to cause a settlement that is with the parties in the affordable housing case to be violated. It doesn't make any sense for a organization that is by and part of the borough to be funded to go after something that the borough has voted, whether you liked it or not, is in the best interest of the borough.
Oh, I'm sorry, you know, I used the word defund and you're using two words, not fund. So
Well,
it's okay,
defund is taking
it's
money
okay to not fund the planning board for their existence.
No, it's not. That's not what's happening.
A part of
As
their
I told you in closed
mission
session,
is that
I told you in closed session, the resolution speaks for itself. If you can't read it correctly, or you just want to misinterpret it a certain way so that you can tell your people on this Zoom call things that are not true, I can't stop you from doing that, Mayor. But
well,
the
you know, that's very interesting. That sounds like
words say what they say.
that sounds like a very non-lawyerly response to a legal question I asked. In fact, it sounded more like a political response. So perhaps what you should do is send your time bill for tonight to the Democratic Party, because that's what you sound like you're doing right now. Okay, you're doing their bidding. Quite frankly, you didn't answer my question, but so you're basically saying that that resolution, as it's written, is permitted under law, and you'll stand behind it as a lawyer because they're relying on your opinion.
Mr. Mayor, the council can vote any way they want on that resolution.
They're relying on you. They're relying on you to
Yeah,
tell them it's lawful.
I have an obligation to this council to give them proper legal advice in the proper setting. A public meeting is not the proper setting, and you know it.
They're going to vote on this resolution tonight.
And they had all the
And the
opportunity.
public is watching you right now, although you don't have your camera on.
Yes.
And all I'm asking you to do is to render a legal opinion to the
We are
council.
certainly watching you. We are certainly watching. Yes, thank you.
I am saying,
It's not public comment.
I'm asking you to issue a legal opinion that the council can rely on you and your law firm.
I've given my
this
opinion to
advice.
the council, Mr. Mayor. I've given my opinion.
Your opinion is yes,
I've
they
given
could
my
rely on
opinion to the public.
it. Is your opinion yes, that they could rely on it?
They can always rely on my opinion. I don't,
Okay, good.
why would I back away from what my opinions are?
Good, good. I'm glad we finally got you to commit to something. Okay, so that's the resolution. It's now been added as number 154 for tonight. It was a surprise, and Mr. Marinello was a little shaky there, but you know, the politics aside, he did say you could rely on it for the council. And so with that, I do need to open to the public during this meeting. So could I have a motion to open to the public?
You're going to.
I'm sorry, Mayor, are we adding it? Are we adding it to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we
Nobody
taking
made
a
a
vote?
motion for it, so I don't know. I'm not going to make a motion.
We just said we're adding it to the agenda.
Well,
Okay.
the way you add things to the agenda is by Robert's Rules of Order. So if you're not willing to follow that, then I'm not adding it for you.
Motion to add the resolution. Can I have the number, please?
154.
154 to the agenda.
We
Second.
need a second.
All in favor?
Councilpersons Farrow,
No.
Sabari,
Yes.
O,
yes,
Sung,
Yes.
Aversa,
Yes.
and Wu.
No.
Will the council members please turn on your cameras so the public can see you?
Okay, Mayor, if we could have a motion to open to the public?
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Thank you.
Didn't hear a lot of ayes. All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak, please virtually raise your hand or physically wave at me in the camera.
If
Unlike-
they,
unlike the
Mr.
council
Per,
members, I do know that you have your cameras on, and I wish our council would turn their cameras on as well. I'll call you, and then you could introduce yourself and state your address. And you'll also have another opportunity to speak at the regular meeting, which will hopefully begin not too long from now.
Mr. Perino has his hand up, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Perino. Mr. Perino, for everybody, is the chairman of the planning board that's just been potentially defunded. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Russell Perino, 220 Fairview Avenue. I'm not sure where to start with this, a resolution that just miraculously appeared. But I'm going to try to respond the best I can. And again, all I have is a verbal reading of it once, which is not adequate, obviously, for me to be able to comment fully on it, but I'll do the best I can. My first question is about money. The planning board spent an extraordinary amount of time and money preparing for the hearings that were commencing last month. It was not until the date of the hearing, the first day of the hearing, when Al Wunsch and the team for the borough decided that they were going to settle this case. So we had to go through the entire process with our professionals, with our legal team to be ready. We were tasked with the review of a 600-unit project. That is a major undertaking for any board. We did it. We were ready. And then when we're sitting there in the courtroom, myself and Carol McMorrow, we were told, well, the hearing's not going to start. For there to be a conversation now where the planning board is expending resources that they shouldn't be, the governing body needs to look at their own actions. And why did they wait until the day those hearings were to start to settle the case? I don't believe for a moment that that wasn't ready to be settled a week, a month, 6 weeks before. So the fact that resources were expended preparing for those hearings, and that we had to hire those hearings, is a direct result of the governing body's decision to settle the case on the day the hearings were to start. So for now there to be a scream of, well, you're spending money you shouldn't be spending, that's ludicrous. It's a direct result of the actions of the majority of the governing body, wasting the taxpayers' money by waiting to settle the case, the suit, until that very day. The planning board has certain rights under the MLUL. We're an autonomous board separate from the governing body, and we have certain rights that are undeniable by the governing body or by anyone else. The state legislature decides what those rights are, in addition to the municipal land use law. The planning board has not contested a settlement agreement between 800 Sylvan Avenue and the borough, nor fair share housing and the borough. Our attorneys have spoken about issues that they have where the planning board has been, the role of the planning board has been reduced to the point where our rights granted by statute have been violated. We've been put in a position where we need to speak up. We were obstructed from any participation in the settlement agreement and the consent order that was signed. We asked to be included and to be heard before the consent order was signed off on. The borough refused to do so. You can ask the borough attorney why they decided not to at least hear what our attorneys had to say. There were, I think, pretty minor modifications that could have made the problem go away. They wouldn't do it. So we were left with no right, no other alternative but to file some papers with the court saying, hey, here's what our rights are. We feel they've been violated. Judge Farrington, what would you like to do about it? We were left with no other choice but to step in to defend our statutory rights that we have. So I'm not sure if this is a political stunt or a substantive step in it from the borough's perspective. And it doesn't really matter. It's just another example of the governing body, and I say the governing body, I'm talking about the Democratic majority, thinking it best to deny the planning board any role in the process from the beginning, since 2019 in January, right? And that was their right to do so. I've spoken about it many times. I won't repeat it again. But now to actually cast stones in the direction of the planning board against the members that volunteer their time, spending dozens and dozens of hours getting ready for a hearing when they then decided to settle last minute. Come on, we don't believe it for a minute. So talking about money, it's at the hands of the majority of the governing body that costs the residents the money for us to get ready for those hearings. So for now to say, and the words I thought were quite clear, that all bills by any planning board attorney would be subject to review by the governing body. That's different from what one would think it might be, because there's normal incidental bills that are accrued each month. So now the governing body is going to have an oversight of every bill from every attorney for the planning board. There's something wrong there. So I think it's a big overreach. It, again, hurts the residents. That's who it hurts. Planning board members, we're all adults, we'll get over it. But the residents are the ones that are hurt here by the actions of this borough majority. You should be thinking about the residents and what's best for them instead of making your political statements, which is what I basically interpret this to be several weeks before the election, and nothing else.
Thank you.
So I'll leave it to the attorneys for the board to speak more specifically with how we now need to react to this resolution. But it's a hypocrisy that one arm of the governing body of the government of Angular Cliffs sees it necessary to cast stones and attack another arm of the same government. This is unheard of in other municipalities, and it's really a problem. So those that participated in this, shame on you. It didn't happen by accident. I don't believe for a second that this is the affordable housing team that said, oh, we need to do this and we need to do it right now. It's a political stunt and I resent it. I'm finished, Mayor.
Well, I want to thank you for your service on the planning board and all the other planning board members. I know you all put in a lot of time, and I've joined you in a few meetings recently as well. And you mentioned something critical here, Mr. Perino, which is that no other borough has ever done this to their planning board. But in other countries, this does happen. In those countries, they do things like this because they need to mop up the decisions from part of the government that they don't control. And so, you know, we see defunding the planning board going on here. some members of the same council are basically out there marching to defund police. What you're really seeing is the ECCP, which is the Englewood Cliffs Communist Party, or the local Democrats.
Oh
This is
my
how they
God.
behave.
Stop it.
This is how they behave. They try to clean up all the problems and get them out of the way. And they don't care about the people who own the homes in town and the value and how hard they work to get there.
And you're not
So,
being political,
Don't
right?
interrupt me. Do not interrupt me. You could have the floor after me, Ms. Sabari. And quite frankly, we have a lot to talk about with you tonight. And I hope the public does as well. Quite frankly, Mr. Marinello is most likely wrong. His opinion of a legal variety on this one and a political variety are both wrong. And the council is probably going to rely on it and pass this resolution because they concocted it, just like they did the settlement. Okay. Anybody else? And we'll speak more about this later. Ms. Sabari, do
Mayor,
you want to defend yourself?
Can I have one more word, please, before I
sure.
sign off? One thing that I did mention, and I think I should, so the public understands what's happened here. The 600-unit plan that was to be heard last month was obviously to be put off, right? Because there's now a 450 plan that's being that's part of the settlement agreement. At some point after the settlement agreement being entered into, the consent order was drafted, and somehow it came to the passing that the planning board would now be tasked with hearing both applications, the 450-unit plan and the 600-unit plan. So that is not what was in the settlement agreement. And our attorneys have spoken to this, and it is a letter to Judge Farrington that's on her desk right now. To add insult to injury, that we have to hear two applications at the same time, and I say we hearing. Participate. It's our job to do site plan review. There's no funds to do that. We were limited by this council's agreement to a $10,000 escrow to hear two applications. That is off by a factor of probably 10, maybe more, of what it would cost. So how can we sit back and let other parties to this consent agreement, consent order, not just violate the rights of the planning board, but to make it impractical? It's an impossibility for us to do our job with regard to these applications. That's where we are, and the public should hear that we're put between a rock and a hard place where we're tasked with reviewing two applications for over 1,000 units altogether, and be limited to $10,000 to do so. Process that for a minute. And leave that everyone to think about that, including the Democratic council persons who obviously support this resolution. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. You know, just to pick up on that thread, so we could explain to the public, as I understand it, our 12.5-hour meeting ended on October 5th. On October 6th, the gang was in court to present the agreement. I mean, I refused to sign the agreement, so Council President O signed it. The ink wasn't even dry yet, and the way I view it is they bumped up the 450 to 600 in less than 24 hours of approving the 450, and none of our lawyers even objected to it. And not only that, but if that's what's happening, then Normandy actually breached the agreement if they're demanding 600, and if the special hearing officer, master, whatever you want to call the guy now, is condoning that because on some notion of anticipatory breach. I don't know what they're doing, but they are just trying to tell you all that they agreed to 450. But in reality, it's already 600 is what they're doing. And that's what Mr. Perino's talking about, is that they're being tasked with reviewing a 600-unit plan. So when people tell you that this is a great deal, they're lying to you. They're all lying to you, and they'll continue lying to you. And I'm looking at you, Ms. Geiger, because you put out so much garbage and lies that we'll talk to you later, I hope. Do not trust them, everyone, because they are lying. Like I said, in less than 24 hours, it went up to 600 from 450. And our own lawyers couldn't find the wherewithal, the intestinal fortitude, the professional decency to object to it. They went along with it. All they said was, "No, Your Honor, it's not in the agreement that way." Come on, guys. You just ripped us off $3 million in legal fees, and you can't even object vehemently? Come on. Ms. McMorro, I saw your hand up.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Carol McMorrow, 489 Summit Street. Ms. Duffy, I'm going to ask if you would please put that resolution up on the website. I believe it's a violation, not that you care or Mr. Marinello cares, by not placing an agenda for the public to view and comment on, that you're going to vote on. While I appreciate that you read that into the record, I think we can all agree it was a very lengthy resolution with a lot of details in it, with a lot of implications and inferences. And I think we have a right as a public to see it and be able to comment on it. You're well aware of certain times when you do take the time to put the resolutions up, and other times when you're politically motivated not to, then you do not, Ms. Duffy.
That's incorrect, Mrs. McMorrow.
Please do not interrupt me, ma'am.
Okay, well, don't
going
give
to
out false
remind you.
statements.
I do not make false statements, Ms.
Okay.
Duffy. I'm going to remind you that you are an employee of this borough. My tax dollars pay for you to have a job. And when I call into a meeting, I expect you to act respectfully and know what your position is, and you're not a member of the governing body to scream and yell out. Show respect, and somebody on that council should be holding her accountable, whether she's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care what she is. But to sit here and watch her engage like she's an equal with the others up there, she works for this town. And I'm demanding of all of you to hold her accountable and show respect. I don't care if you socialize, party with her, if you're her doctor, if you're her lawyer, I don't care. She needs
Work
to
both ways.
That's number one.
No problem. I will respond to all your false accusations
I
when
have
we're
no
done.
false accusations.
Okay,
You're the clerk in this meeting.
You've been sanctioned by a judge twice.
that's right, because of the mayor.
No,
Ms.
because of
Duffy.
your actions that you
That's right.
violated the law.
Okay.
Sure,
So
Ms.
let's,
Of course.
Duffy,
this is
you are the
not,
clerk in this meeting.
Ms. Duffy,
You need to function as the clerk. If you want to
Mayor,
function
I
as a
also have
resident,
a right to
if you want to
defend
function as a
myself, and I will
Ms.
be done
Duffy, do
when
not interrupt me.
when
Ms.
Mrs.
Duffy.
McMorrow
No, no.
finishes.
if you want to function as a resident, then step down from your clerk role
that is correct.
No.
and come for your open mic, okay?
Stop
But
it.
otherwise, you're there to take
For
notes.
political purposes, you need to stop.
You're there to take notes.
Continue.
That's it.
McMorrow has the floor.
Let her have the floor.
Okay. Do not call me McMorrow.
I'm sorry, Miss McMorrow.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sabari. Okay. I am asking for no politics on this, and please instruct the clerk to place that resolution on the borough's website when you close the caucus and go into the regular, so that those of us in the public have the opportunity to read it properly and not strive to think what we understood you to say prior to us commenting. I, for one, am still waiting for the resolution that you voted on October 4th at the special meeting for 12 hours. It's still not up there. And we do not need to put an Oprah request for resolutions that you voted on at that meeting. The clerk should be placing the resolutions on the website. Just asking the council to hold her accountable to do her job. You'll get sued a lot less if you hold her accountable.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next, I have a couple of questions. Mr. Marinello, if you can help me understand this. I attended I don't know if you called in for the October 6th meeting hearing that Judge Gallipoli held. Did you call in for that? Hello?
No, I did not.
Okay, so I don't know if you were aware of some of the things he said, if you saw the transcript yet, but what happened there was, and I did call in. So there was, and we were all at the special meeting for 12 hours, and we placed the settlement agreement on the borough's website. We all looked at it. There was screenshots. We shared the screen. But what happened was that 800 Sylvan made an oral alteration to the settlement agreement that the council voted on. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't do contractual law, but I have a certain understanding from my real estate contracts that once someone signs an agreement, any material change to that agreement would have to be either re-signed by both parties, or in a council's case, because you need a vote to act as a body, you'd have to vote again. So, Mr. Marinello, if you could explain to me, how did that contract be allowed to be altered by one side and the council did not vote on it? Because Mr. Troutner did not have the authority to, I don't believe Mr. Troutner even had the authority to say it's okay, because he's not the borough attorney. And the governing body would have had to have voted. So as the borough attorney, could you please opine and explain to me how you, or the borough, I won't say you because maybe you're not even aware, how they were allowed to unilaterally change that agreement without a revote of the council?
I have no idea what the circumstances were because I wasn't there. I'm happy to look into it for you and I'll let you know.
Well, I think everybody knows Gloria O signed it. So maybe Miss O, do you know, did anybody consult you that they made a unilateral change?
Ms. McMorrow, no.
No, okay, well, obviously, I mean, unless I misunderstood, and Mr. Perino, I think just spoke, I heard him reference it. I read that you voted on a 450 unit application, but 800 Sylvan requested that the two applications be heard simultaneously, one for a 450 and one for a 600. That to me is very dangerous, to let anybody simultaneously do two applications at once, especially without the vote of the governing body. So I don't know how anything was allowed to have gone forward on October 6th. And Albert One signed it, Thomas Troutner signed it, Jeffrey Serenian signed it. You're paying, Albert Wunsch got paid over $500,000. I don't know how much Jeff Serenian and Mr. Troutner got paid. I'm sure they got paid more than that. But these lawyers were all aware of it. And that's something that you need to look into right away. That's number one. The next thing was—
Can I interrupt real quick, Mr. Marinello? If there was a material change to what was voted on, what is your opinion about the need for a revote?
I don't know. I don't know whether there was a material change. I mean, that's asking me a total.
I'm just asking if there was
not change from
material change.
Hold on. I know that it did not change.
It may not have been a material change. I'm asking if there was a material change, would we need to revote on it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I appreciate that. If you could let us know at the next meeting.
It was not changed from 450 units to 600 units.
No, I didn't say that, Mr. Marinello. What I said was that the settlement agreement just allows them to proceed with one application. It's very clear. I mean, you will have copies of it. It's up on the borough website. It's very clear. It's one application, 450 units.
There was not a material change. They were already awarded the 600 units. So there was no material change. The only difference here is that if we in fact violate our agreement, then they would revert back to the 600 units.
Okay, no, I'm not, Ms. Sabari, seriously, you're not a lawyer, and I'm not going to even.
No, but I'm very well aware.
But you have Ms. Sabari, you have a serious conflict. I'm not going to even discuss it with you.
You don't want the answer because it doesn't reflect what you want to hear. So
sorry, I'm asking if you would stop playing politics and let me finish.
I'm not playing politics.
I had a legitimate question. Mr. Marinello was kind enough to say he's going to look into it. That's enough for me. You're not a lawyer, ma'am. You're not, ma'am. You are not a lawyer. You need to stop playing lawyer.
No, you understand. You know exactly what happened. You're playing politics.
No, I'm not. I asked a legitimate question. The settlement agreement does not say that they can proceed with 2 applications.
The settlement agreement says that they can modify it for unsubstantial changes, and this is not substantial. They already had 600 units.
Ms. Sabari, would you stop?
No, I'm not going to stop.
You're not a lawyer. Mr. Mayor, I have the floor. She's
You
like,
do have the floor. Mr. Barr is being
not gonna
rude.
do
And by
this.
the way, Mr. Barr, you're also being wrong because the fact that there's a settlement agreement, it abrogates any decision that came before it, okay? So they don't have 600. You gave them 600 on October 6th.
No, they had won 600 already,
They
Mario.
won it, but again, the settlement agreement supersedes anything that they won, okay?
Mario, you're leading the public to believe that we gave them 600 units.
No,
We did
you
not.
did. You did. On October 6th, your lawyers went in there and refused to object, okay?
That is not true. That's not how that went down, but okay.
Okay, Mr. Marinello, if you would please look into it like you said you would. Okay, I appreciate it. You're the lawyer. Okay, you represent the borough. Ms. Sabari is not a lawyer, and you really need to tell her to stop making representations as a lawyer and misstating items. Okay, I know what my question was. She's twisting what I asked you, and I appreciate you just focusing on it. I wanted to ask you also about the escrow money. I had seen that it was only a $10,000 escrow that was put for all of the professionals. And I wanted someone from the council to explain how you find that to be a justifiable amount for all of the professionals, yet you have several resolutions on the agenda tonight, and you're giving Mr. Serenian an extra $50,000 just for 1 month, and you're giving Mr. Wunsch with no affordable housing experience at all an additional $40,000 a month. So how would you expect the planning board to operate on that type of an application for all of their professionals with $10,000? And I mean, it appears that you're doing that intentionally so that they cannot, you're tying their hands purposefully. Because if you really wanted to save money, you would not be giving Al Wunsch another $40,000 or Jeff Serenian another $50,000. So I'd like, if somebody has an explanation that makes sense out of it, I'd love to hear it.
I agree with you.
Well, no, I'd like to hear, I want to give them a chance to explain it. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. I'm more than welcome to hear what people have to say.
Mr. Wunsch, Mr. Marinello, anyone? Is Serenian still on? They won't.
I just missed them, remember?
They won't defend them.
Okay, so if you would just be kind enough to please put that resolution on when you close the one meeting and open the next so that the public could read that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. McMorrow. Let's try it this way. Ms. Duffy, I'm directing you to put that resolution on the website. I believe I did it earlier. And also just to continue what Mrs. McMorrow said, I'm looking at the agreement right now. And an agreement is an agreement. And for whatever reason, sometimes parties don't feel that they have to respect the agreement. And sometimes the lawyers don't feel they have to respect the agreement. Even though I don't agree with this agreement, it's very clear that this agreement may not be modified, amended, or altered in any way, except by a writing signed by each of the parties. So let's respect the sanctity of a contract. Let's stop having these lawyers pretend they could change contracts without coming back to the governing body. And by the way, no one on the governing body could even make a change to this. You need council action to do that. All right. Anybody else wishing to be heard now? You have an opportunity later as well. Mrs. O'Shea.
Hold on, please. You have to unmute yourself, Mrs. O'Shea.
I had to find where the cursor was. Okay, Mary O'Shea, 12 Irving Avenue. I would like to reiterate what Mrs. McMorrow said, and please put the resolution that was read up where we can read it and absorb it. Was a lot of detail in that resolution. And unless we were taking shorthand, we would not be able to keep track of it. A couple of things. The part of the that was read, and I don't, like I said, I don't recall the particular details, but the resolution talks about the municipal sponsored development or whatever, which would be the building that was purchased, the Lions Club, Clendenning Place, the community center, for the 100% affordable complex that would be put out for bid for developers and hope to get the 9% tax credit. I would like to say that's where things were left off in January 2019, when the two new council members, Jimmy Song and Debbie Sabari, were joining the council. They approved that resolution, they approved that plan, and then they dropped it. And it's something that I brought up many times at various council meetings, that I wanted to know why it had not gone out to bid. Why is it not gone out to bid? Michael Mistretta and Mr. Serenian both had reiterated to the public, to the planning board, and to the council. Or there's somebody's got a dog, they got to shut it up. That they were already receiving calls from potential developers that were anxious to bid on this project, that it was very desirable, and a lot of them wanted to bid on it. But the council majority, Democratic council majority, dropped the ball on it. They didn't want to do it. And maybe if, and it's only a maybe because it's hypothetical, if it had been done in January 2019, almost 2 years ago, we might have had a better outcome with fair share housing, with the special master. We could have amended that plan, improved on it, and made it comply. Okay, now you're doing it, and you still have to do the same thing that you did not do in January 2019, after the building was bought with the COA funds. Okay, so I'm glad that it's being done. I'm sorry that you chose to abandon that project when you took office because you thought you were going to do it better. All right. Now, regarding the limitations that are being placed on the planning board and its professionals, it's really outrageous. And the reason I say that is the planning board acts for the benefit of the town. The planning board acts and reviews plans to make sure that they are safe for the residents. And I would just like to read a couple of lines from our attorney's letter to Judge Farrington 2 days ago. Plan revisions. The plan allows 800 Sylvan to revise their plans and exhibits in response to board reports without submitting said plans to the board or the special hearing officer. Again, contrary to the MLU NJ SA 40:55D-10. Furthermore, the MLU requires all items to be submitted ahead of time. The NJ SA 40:55D-46-50. Moreover, and this is the important part, moreover, plans pertaining to matters vital to the public health and welfare, like utilities, drainage, grading, lighting, sewer, and water, should be submitted to the board to be reviewed by the board's professionals and the public 10 days before the hearing. And then they give legal statute. Those things are required by the municipal land use law. All right. The health and welfare of the community and the prospective occupants of the complex that is being built is at risk by your actions. Okay, we do not want to see an Avalon fire like happened in Edgewater, like Mr. Marinello was aware. Okay, we want to make sure that whatever is built is safe for the community and safe for the residents of that project. Okay, so I hope that you would consider these statements, and the fact that you were so willing to accept a limit on the board's professionals when you are paying your professionals never-ending increases. And the 450 unit plan has never been viewed by us to have any professionals look at it. So whatever is in that plan has not been looked at, and it's wrong. It's totally wrong. And I think you're in violation. And the way Mr. Marinello's resolution is written, it's as if the planning board is trying to overturn the case. That's not the case. The planning board is looking at it to make sure that it is safe, that it's healthy, that it conforms to standards for open space, as Mr. Mistretta would talk about, standards for green space, standards for playgrounds, standards for parking, standards for traffic. All these things have to be looked at, and you're just waving a white flag of surrender to 800 Sylvan. And it's very, very bad for the town, and you really all should be ashamed of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Now, again, you'll have an opportunity to be heard during the regular meeting, which we're going to do immediately following this. And
Mrs. Gonzalez had her hand up, and so did Mr. Mehta.
okay,
Who would you like first?
Ms. Gonzalez, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to read a statement. This is a letter I sent to the mayor. Mr. Mayor, I hope you received it. I emailed it to everyone. I saw it was delivered, but it was only opened by a few people. But I also sent a hard copy to Borough Hall, and I would like to read this for the public record. So to Mayor Mario Kranjak, Council President Gloria O, Councilman Edward Aversa, Councilman Raymond Farrow, Councilman Jimmy Song, Councilwoman Deborah Sabari, and Councilman William Wu. I'm writing to you as a concerned citizen of Englewood Cliffs, one of the many residents who follows town politics but avoids council meetings because of the outrageous conduct of our elected officials. I attended the special council meeting on Sunday, October 4th, to hear details about the affordable housing settlement. While I had anticipated some heated discussion, nothing could have prepared me for the behavior of the mayor, the council president, and other members of the council. I could not believe my ears as you shouted, interrupted, and mocked each other, hurling baseless accusations and outright lies. When a vote was finally called, the majority voted to accept the settlement and end the litigation. I hoped this would mark the end of another chapter in Englewood Cliffs' ugly history as a town that has fought for decades against doing the right thing, building affordable housing mandated by law. Yet I was mistaken. The very next day, an email arrived from the mayor outlining how he and other council members are planning on fighting the, quote, very suspicious actions taken by the Democrat council majority, close quote. Later in the week, I received several flyers from both sides outlining the merits and defects of the settlement, smearing members of the other parties as corrupt, incompetent, and trying to scam the residents of this town. Enough. Enough with the negative campaigning and fear-mongering. Enough with the lies and innuendos, and enough with the vitriol and incivility. We are all residents of one of the loveliest towns in Bergen County, and most of us have known each other for years. Why would anyone on either side of the aisle work to damage our town? What is there to be gained in spending millions of our tax dollars on more useless litigation? The likelihood of Englewood Cliffs winning another lawsuit is slim to none, as the professionals who have been working on this case advised everyone at the October 4th meeting. In my opinion, a ruling in favor of our town is even more unlikely given the embarrassing national spectacle from this summer when a young resident was billed for organizing a peaceful rally to address affordable housing and Black Lives Matter. Mayor Kranjak, Council President O, and all council members, I'm asking you to stop the smears and to stop the negative campaigning. Stop pitting one group of citizens against another and stop the fear mongering. You were elected to work for us, not to fight amongst each other. The citizens of Englewood Cliffs expect and deserve better. Now that is my statement, but I would also like to, if anyone on the council has questions for me, I'd like to address them, but I'd also just like to, just a little minor thing. A question, does the council follow Robert's Rules of Order for the council meetings?
We have adopted Robert's rules. However, Robert's rules are not always followed, as you can see.
Yeah, I could see that very, very clearly. One thing in Robert's Rules that does say, and I just want to clear this up for everybody who maybe heard at the end of the vote, at the end of that hours-long meeting. And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to call you on this, but an abstain vote, according to Robert rules, does not count for the positives or the negatives. It is a vote to abstain. It helps to reach the quorum, and that's it. So you kept shouting over that you were going to break a tie. There was no tie to break. Robert's rules,
Well,
if you're following them, I mean, you're either following them or not, and it's not something.
We are following them, but there was a tie for different reasons. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
A series of questions, actually, and I like the fact that you've become active again politically. I know you ran for a school board a couple years ago, and that didn't all go so well. But you know, since I became mayor, I've dealt with a lot of issues. And let me ask you, where were you when I was removing a corrupt police chief? Where were you when I was removing that police chief who was a racist, who condoned racism, who condoned sexism, who condoned threatening public officials?
I certainly was not protesting against any of that.
No, but where were you to help me do that?
Well, the council meetings happen to be late on Wednesday nights, and my job is actually working until late, so I've not been able to attend them all. And listen, Mr. Mayor, I'm not here to justify what I have or have not done for this town, because I don't work for this town. You do.
I do. I'm a volunteer.
Right.
But even though you work late, all those aggressive behaviors by a former police chief
But I mean,
were going on even while you were not working.
And your point is?
Here's the thing, like you parachute into one issue, and I saw that you're marching with the Defund the Police group this summer.
It was not a Defund the Police group. It was a group to speak about Black
I went on their
lives
website. It says Defund Police.
No one mentioned
Miss Sabari and Miss O were there.
Mario.
So I went on their website. That's what they stand for. And you know, it's a great country because you could actually do that. Okay, it's a great country. But I actually support police, as do William Wu and Ramon Farrow and the council candidates that we have this year.
Council.
Okay.
Mayor,
I saw Mr. Mehta had his hand up. Mr. Mehta.
Did my statement, Mayor, let me finish because I do have the floor right now. Mr. Mayor, you actually,
Mehta after you.
Excuse me?
You go ahead and finish, and then Mr. Mehta had his hand up.
Well, I'd like to address some of the things you said.
Go ahead.
You asked me where I was with the corrupt police chief. I was following everything that was happening and that too.
But you didn't come out and say, Mayor, I support you.
Mayor, let her finish. Stop interrupting the resident.
No, it's okay.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, and we actually know each other socially. And Mario, you put me on a board with Carol to be bipartisan.
I did.
But yes, and nothing ever happened with that. We never had any more meetings. Why was that disbanded?
Well, I also asked you to help me place outdoor art sculptures on a rotating basis.
Yeah, well, I got,
never got anything back from you.
You know, it's a lot of people have a lot of different things to do, and I was very happy to help you with that, and nothing ever followed through with that. But to say you're, I marched with the defund the police group. There was nothing about defunding the police with the Black Lives Matter protest. It was actually about affordable housing, the very issue that is on the table right now.
Right,
But
and I had a,
the fact, Mr. Mayor, the fact that you have to come at a resident of this town and accuse me of just parachuting in on this thing, this is exactly why people avoid the council meetings. Because we come in and we want to have our voices heard. And it's only the very loudest and the most strident people who get to speak. Otherwise, they're spoken over by you and by other members of the council. This is what my letter was about. You received it. I don't know if you opened it or not, but now it has been entered into the record. And I'd be happy to send it to everybody. Sometimes the only reaction happens when people get some negative publicity. So I'm asking you, as a resident of this town,
I get plenty of that.
I am asking you on a personal level, this needs to stop. All of this from all sides. This isn't a Democrat versus Republican. This is people being horrible to each other. And for what? This is what I'd like to know. What is the good of doing all of this? You're right to get rid of a corrupt, sexist police officer. Did I have to show up with banners and flowers and say, thank you, Mario, for doing that?
no, but you know what? That was an issue that I thought for sure
Mario,
in
you
your
have this
new
horrible
social
habit of
justice
interrupting
profile,
me.
you would have been supportive.
Mario,
By the way, just so you know, because whoever's telling you to
wanna
come
join
about
me?
now,
This is how
but
the
they-
mayor speaks.
let me just finish one statement. You
No,
probably haven't been told by Debbie or Lizette, who are your friends, right? Or somebody else who's close with them. What you haven't been told is that I actually had a 100% affordable housing project, okay? I had that project. And
Mario,
it could have
I would
been
not-
refined. It was 100% affordable. Your taxes were not going to go up, okay? But Debbie and her
That was not
and her cronies decided to do it
why I
differently.
came to the meeting. This is
Cronies.
not why I came to the
So
meeting.
I'm sure, like, if you're being told things, you weren't told all of
First
the
of
things.
all,
that you
Mayor,
know.
I don't
Mayor.
even know Emma. We've
This
never
is
even
not
met.
why I came to the meeting.
Okay, all right. Look, I need to get on to the
I-
regular meeting. So, Mr. Mehta, go ahead. You have the floor.
Hi, Eamon Mehta, 75 Roberts Road. I heard that in the agreement or the settlement agreement or the resolution which was passed right now, $10,000 is the limitation for professional fees to be paid to all the consultants, and then they're supposed to approve 2 different plans, one for 450 units, another for 600 units. I am in real estate, and I believe certain council members on real estate too. Some people are doing closings. We have our head of the council, affordable housing unit. She is a real estate executive. I need to ask those people, in which world and which era, in 1900, that were they able to see professionals actually approve or review plans of 450 or 600 units? In today's world, it costs few $100,000. And I find it fascinating for the same people today to approve $10,000 and say this is what planning board is going to do the job in. Actually, they don't want, this is a further proof, they do not want the planning board or the town to get a proper review of these plans. They just want to give it to their friends, who is basically 800 Sylvan, a gift on the silver platter, okay? There is no way that this can be done in $10,000 when all of the attorneys who are working for them are being paid $40,000, $50,000, $30,000 a month. And they're asking all different kind of mechanical engineers, architects, everybody to review these plans in $10,000. It's impossible, okay? So purposely, they're doing this basically to the residents of this town. That's number one. Okay, number two, I heard Ms. Sabari right now say, oh, they won 600 units. But the very purpose of their settlement agreement, which they've sold, and I see Ms. Geiger here, who has basically tried to tell everybody that we are only getting 450 units or 90 units of affordable housing units. What she basically also does is a fine line print in her 4-page essay report that exclusive of overlay zones. So while she draws the attention of people to the 90 units and 450 units or 200 units in her big report and friendly report, a non-political, that's what she says, but that is all hogwash, okay? She puts in that exclusive of. Then when these guys put up the resolution on a Friday at 7:30, they write north of 800 Sylvan, every site is going to get 20 units per acre. No one knows, no citizen knows, and no one has the time on a Friday evening or a Saturday or Sunday to really figure out how many units are those, okay? I was shocked to see some of the reports here, and I looked it up. It's about 100 acres. So we're talking of about 1,900 to 2,000 units. And that's what is excluded in Ms. Geiger's report. And while she's trying to sell, she's selling ice in the winter to the people over here. Okay, ice in the winter. Next, Ms. Sabari, few months ago, had told us why she did not proceed with the 77 units. In her opinion, 800 Sylvan was the best deal because we would not have to proceed on 77 units. But now, with this settlement and with both the settlements with fair share and this, not only are we building, so her premises of not building that 77 units in January, okay, that was her genius decision, which she did on the first day, that was not acceptable. But yet she has nothing in writing from our experts stating that, no, you don't need to build 77 units because it's not going to satisfy. That's why you need to settle with 800 Sylvan. But today we are also going to allow 800 Sylvan to build. We are going to build on 77 units. And they also state to everybody today, oh, we have builders remedy, builders immunity back. What good is the immunity anymore? We are actually giving zoning approvals to 5 to 6 such companies, including other people who own the overlay zones, about 2,200 units there approximately, okay? And agreement, from what I understand, and I'm not saying that I've done that many agreements as Ms. Sabari or Ms. Geiger or Ms. Gloria O or all our attorneys, but whatever little I know, agreements, unless and until they cannot be modified, and if there is a material change, that agreement needs to be either ratified again, and if that agreement, especially on a council meeting, should have been taken a new vote. Ms. Gloria O has no authority, according to my understanding of the municipality law and the New Jersey state law, had no authority. And our attorneys to actually approve also, they have no authority to actually approve and give them 600 units. Then Ms. Geiger's report and everybody's speech, including Mr. Gregario's, how great we are doing, should include 600 units and not 450 units, okay? And so for them to say, oh, there was a judgment, but that's the reason of the settlement, to remove the uncertainties, right? Then why are we going back to the 600 units? Why? And that actually should not be acceptable. And I believe it's basically wrong. That thing should be going back to the council's meeting again. I just don't understand how that can be done and how it can be accepted and a consent orders are signed by the 2 judges. Maybe they don't even know about it. Maybe they do. I have no idea. I did hear one of the hearing officers take all of you to task for your ruly behavior or whatever. But I thought that with him being that strict on everything, for him to not go through this and just rubber stamp and approve and just say, okay, I'm shocked. Okay. And I also heard Democrats' justification that in July 2019, put it back to the people, the citizens, because you guys wanted us to go and fight. That's why we changed our course and we decided to fight. But at that time, they had 5 seats. The same way as they rammed down the settlement today on the 2nd of October, they could have rammed down the settlement then. Why didn't they do that if that was really, truly, they really believed that that was the right thing for this? So they are at fault for all this because they flip-flopped on 10th of July when they had the 5 seats. You, Mayor, I know you're being blamed, but what I've always referred a couple of times, you are just a rubber stamp mayor with no power because they have 5 seats in January 2019, and today also they have 4 seats. That's why they were able to ram down the settlement agreement on October 2 for the good of the people. What people don't understand, this is going to bring 3,000 units, no less in next few years. And you don't need builder immunity anymore. Actually, this is basically rezoning of our town under the pretext of the affordable housing unit. Affordable housing is only a few hundred units, but 2,700, a gift to the builders in name of affordable housing unit for people to make money, basically crowd our town, and basically we will not have enough resources. Okay, so that's why these meetings are not civil, because some people understand and some people don't understand. Thank you, I'm done.
Thank you. All in favor of the rule of law. Does anybody else wish to speak now? Otherwise,
Mayor, there was Miss Alvarado had her hand up first, then
Can I
Mr.
speak,
Telzer.
please? Can I speak? I don't have a hand, but I would like to speak.
Sure, go ahead. We'll
Thank
do
you.
Ms. Valari, then Ms. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There are
Thank you.
other people who were waiting to speak.
I'm sorry?
Robert's Rules of Order, Mayor.
You know, Mayor, I don't want to have an argument with Ms. Sabari. She's obviously the one that makes a political statement, so please take Ms. Alvarado and then come back to me. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Sure, just so everyone knows, I don't actually have Zoom control because the clerk won't share
clerk
it with me.
just
It's
told you
posted
who
by
was
law.
waiting.
So Ms. Alvarado, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead.
Debbie, stop grandstanding, okay?
Alvarado.
I
Ms.
gave up
Alvarado
my
has the
time.
floor, everybody, please. Ms. Alvarado, go ahead.
Good evening. I am new. I'm here for maybe 6 months, but I am very involved usually in the places where I live. So I attend these meetings, and it's really disheartening to see the behavior of our mayor and the council. In general, I'm not here to defend anyone, to be on anybody's side, although if I were, that is my right. But it is outrageous. And an example is right now when Ms. Gonzalez, I'm looking at her name, was speaking. She was interrupted one time after the other, but then Mr. Mehta was not interrupted at all. Nothing against anyone. I want to hear what everyone wants. However, that when people are not in agreement with the mayor, he interrupts. It's what I'm seeing. I'm not on your side or anybody's side. I'm just saying what I'm seeing, and it's very disheartening to see how neighbors are fighting against each other. I can't believe it. It's when, you know, these buildings, everything that we're fighting about will stay behind. So what matters is how we treat each other. And we are neighbors. That's why I had to raise my hands. I've been here, I've been coming, I've been silent. But this time, come on, somebody's trying to make a point. We all have the right to speak. It is our right to say what we have to say without being attacked. What does it matter if somebody went to a rally? I mean, if you were on the other foot, like if it was a rally that you agreed with, then you wouldn't say anything. Like we have treat each other like neighbors. Like these buildings, whatever is being built, our houses and everything else will be here after we pass away. What matters is how we treat each other. It's very sad. I sometimes feel like I moved to the wrong town. We are the people of this town. We have to work together to make it work. Everyone working together. We are neighbors. And I don't see how people want to hurt their own town. So the key here is working, actually working together and not bickering so much. It's very sad. It's very sad. But respect, and it has to be, you are the head, Mr. Mayor. You have to respect people that are speaking. It's interesting that she was speaking and you interrupted her repeatedly, and then he spoke, Mr. Mehta. I mean, nothing against him. I respect everybody, but it's you didn't interrupt him because you liked what he was saying. That is not right. We have to analyze ourselves and try to work together for our town, because nothing can be done in this manner. Nothing can be taking place like this, like bickering with each other and fighting. I mean, we have children. We have to set an example here. It's not that deep. How do we go against each other for some building or some material possession? We have to look within ourselves. And at the end of the day, here together, we space. It's a wonderful town, many great things. But if the people are flawed, then it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. We have to come together somehow. It may not, people may not care about that, but it's really, as a new person in this town, it's very sad to see the behavior of our officials. I mean, people chose you. I didn't, because I wasn't here before, but we chose you to represent who we are as a town. So instead of putting us against each other, you have to bring us together. So in the interruptions and the behavior, it has to stop. I don't know how people can be in agreement with this. It's really a shame. And that, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Mrs. Valari, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak about anything other than, what's going on with affordable housing, which is really more about high density building where the builders will be making lots of money. Nobody is against affordable housing. I think that's something that needs to be spoken to. Ms. Alvarado, thank you so much for speaking, but I don't know if you noticed that Ms. Sabari interrupted me and not for anything, but did you notice when Ms. Sabari and Ms. O and Mr. Marinello interrupted Mrs. McMorrow? This isn't the mayor's doing. This has been going on for far too long. I don't know how long you've been in town. I've been here for over 30 years. And I'd like to maybe give a little bit of a background on what has happened here in this town. I would like just to say one thing before I forget, because I get very passionate and I forget. I really think that Ms. O, Mr. Aversa, Mr. Marinello, anybody who is on a council should be showing their faces. Thank you, Mr. Song, for doing that, Mr. Wu, Ramon, Mr. Kranjak. Also, as far as Ms. Duffy, I think you know that I have worked with you in the past, and I know that we have had issues in the past, and I know that Joe, please do not interrupt me. You are there to listen.
I didn't say a word.
When we had, well, somebody did. When we had issues in Borough Hall, when I was working there as Board of Health Secretary, you were extremely rude to me. You threw papers at me. And when I made a complaint to the mayor, he basically said to me, Mayor Joe Parisi now, okay, Junior, he said to me, this is Lizette House, and what Lizette does is fine with me. Maybe you think, or maybe it's true that the ex-mayor of Englewood Cliffs is still running the show in that town. And I really resent the way you have been answering the mayor and other people. That's something you should do behind closed doors. You are there to officiate a meeting, not to be bantering back and forth with the mayor or anybody else, as far as I'm concerned, and I believe. I wanted to say something about decorum. Decorum comes from everybody, not just the mayor. It comes from Miss Sabari, who interrupts constantly. It comes from Miss O. It comes from Mr. Aversa. Have you ever heard the things he says? I'm going to give you crayons, Mario, so you could draw something. Or where are you, Mr. Marinello, did you forget your crown? What, Miss Emma Guest, this is something that's been going on a long time. I don't know you. I only know that I've lived here, and I've lived through Parisi, and I've lived through Mr. Kranjak. Those are the only two mayors that I have lived under. And the reason why we as a town are in such a mess is because both Parisi Senior and Parisi Junior dropped the ball. And now we, the residents, Miss Guest, Miss Alvarado, are suffering the consequences of destroying this very beautiful town that you espouse about. Okay, there was a time where all we had to do was build 4 affordable housing. I don't care if we built 600 affordable housing. I resent the fact that this is going to allow all developers to come into this town and rape it. And guess who's going to be holding the purse? You. Everybody in this town is going to suffer the consequences of what Miss Sabari, Mr. Aversa, Miss O, Mr. Song, and being helped along by Mr. Marinello, who represents the board. I've been following the cases. We had to go before Judge Gallipoli, and after hours of paying the experts, the attorneys, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for one day, mind you, okay, because they were all there. And all of a sudden, Miss Sabari and the rest come in. We have decided to settle this case. They came before us and they voted on this case. We are now allowing a judge, and I'm not sure what the ethics of that is, that Judge Gallipoli can now look at 2 different plans, that the 600 unit plan shouldn't even be in play anymore because our board, the people who represent us with the attorneys, decided to settle this case. Why would our attorneys not say a word about that? You need to ask yourselves these questions. Don't just listen to politics and who's being disrespectful. You need to know the facts, okay? And the fact is that we relied on an attorney, Attorney Serenian, who has been paid, I don't know how much in all the years that he's been representing. I'm sure it's millions, okay? We relied on Mr. Serenian to give us expert advice about affordable housing. And then I just recently saw a text that he sent to Attorney Troutner that he's got 30-year experience on affordable housing. However, he's not a good litigator. Why the hell do we have an expert who's getting paid that kind of money and can't litigate? Are you kidding me? And Mr. Troutner and Mr. Serenian agreed that Ms. Sabari could not vote on this because she is conflicted, and yet they allowed it anyway. So you know what, residents of Englewood Cliffs, you better rise up and smell the coffee, because this is all about special people making money. Parisi and whoever all the other investors are. And that's what you should be scared of, not about how we speak to each other, because when we speak to each other, we get emotional. I tend to get emotional. And sometimes I raise my voice, and sometimes I may say something that I shouldn't say, but that's all coming from my heart, okay? So it sounds really la-di-da to say we should all be so nice to each other. We should do this. You know what? This is not what the world is. This is not Shangri-La. These are facts. And all I want to say is that this town is being sold out from under you, and you should know that. And Mr. De Gregorio, I want to know how you got my email. And when you get chosen to speak, you better say it to me, because I never gave you my email address. So all I want to say is ask yourself the questions. Miss O, I would like to ask you a question. When are you planning to leave Englewood Cliffs? Because we know you sold your house a year ago. By the way, Why would she sell a house a year ago? Maybe she knew what was coming down, but the rest of us didn't. Why didn't Ms. So say, hey, guys, you know what? This is going to happen, and you better sell your house now, because when this all happens, our taxes are going to be through the roof, and our town will be destroyed. And it's not going to be the beautiful little sleepy town that we have. We are a town of 5,200 residents. Do you know what 600 units? Do the math. Do the math. How many more people would be living in this town? Who's paying for all that's going to happen in this town? And by the way, I don't have it in front of me, but does anybody remember that if on the overlay zones, if the builders can't get funding, guess who's funding them? You are. Your tax dollars. Ms. Duffy, my tax dollars pay for you. Mr. Marinello, my tax dollars pay for you, and you should be representing me as well as you are, Ms. Sabari, Ms. O, Mr. Song, and Mr. Avorsa. And you should be ashamed of yourselves to call yourself an attorney and not protect the residents of this town, which pay the taxes for everybody concerned here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Valari. I think Mr. Telzer had his hand up next.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a comment to not the last woman who spoke, but the two before. I'm a homeowner in Englewood Cliffs, and my family, actually, I grew up in the town, so it's been 60 years. 60 years on Churchill Road. I don't live there now, but I own the home. So I just wanted to say that it's not a little thing when a community, I believe it has 1,800 homes, is going to have 600 new units now. So 600 added to the existing 1,800. And then I believe it's up to, what, 600 or 800 new ones. There's a new mandate in 2025. So, you know, it sounds nice that we should all get along, but you know what? Democracy is messy. And when you're talking about completely changing the town, and particularly to the PhD who spoke, three women before, it sounds nice to have a social justice perspective, but it's not a social justice perspective when you're talking about possibly adding 1,200 units to a town with 1,800 homes. It's completely revamping the town, and people bought their houses with the idea of low taxes, and they, particularly in the last 20, 30 years, they paid a premium for their homes. So my home's on, the home I own is on Churchill Road. If you go a couple blocks away, the equivalent home would be a lot less money. So people are paying for this. So it's easy to say, let's all be nice to one another, but it's coming out of someone's pocket. And then I just want to say to a few of the social justice warriors, and I think it's pretty clear who they are, Englewood Cliffs has fulfilled for, what is it, about 50-something years, a mandate to send students to Dwight Morrow High School. This is mandated by the state. And that's not nothing either. So, and I also understood, reading the paper a couple of years ago, that our K through 12 is going to be regionalized, very possibly, that the state wants to eliminate that. So, given the issues being faced, that we may have almost as many affordable housing units, 1,200, versus the 1,800 that we have now, added to the town, that our K through 12, our K through 8 is going to be regionalized, and we have no control over our high school. Why should we not have messy democracy and have the two sides fighting on the issues? I'm totally fine with it. I don't necessarily agree with anybody on a lot of issues, but I think it's good. And just another thing about the police chief, who was an abomination and corrupt. And let me just say, for lack of a better word, I had some inside information on that, so to speak. But it's a wonderful thing through democracy that he's done. And he was a racist and he was a sexist. And the first 8 lawsuits before the town went crazy, before the employees went crazy, he was included in all of them. So I think it was really important and to get rid of him. And that came as a result of the democracy. And speaking of going to meetings, in 2011, I came to the meeting and I saw corrupt police chief, Michael Chiaffi. There's a cancer on the police force. And that cancer is no longer there. There's one officer I think that should go, but the cancer at the top is gone. And I'm very happy about that. So as far as I'm concerned, keep the debate up. Don't worry about it being messy because it's a lot. I think the citizens and the residents and the homeowners can handle a little bit of being upset when they have to pay for things and the taxes could go through the roof. I thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Telzer. You know, I should actually take this opportunity to make clear that our current police chief, Henkelman, who's been chief since 2019, has done a great job and has turned around that whole police department. And it's such a nice thing to see when people come to work, to do their jobs, nothing else, no political bidding, no favors, just courteous professional work. And that's what they're doing. And so that's not who we're referring to here. Chief Henkelman is doing a great job. In fact, there's an employment agreement for him this evening as well.
I wasn't referring to him either. Michael Chiaffi.
I just want to make sure because some people who don't know, and I don't want them to leave here upset. So thank you, Mr. Telzer. Who's next? Mr. Di Gregorio.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I will be short and to the point. I would like to say that we have a huge opportunity in front of us. We really need to turn the corner. This agreement was the best that we could do, the negotiators could do. This is the point where we need to unite and we need to come together. If the agreement is broken, we risk skyrocketing taxes, and we can't do that. But if we come together around this agreement and we look to reinvigorate the $1 trillion mile, we're in a time of change now. Own Backup just moved into town. We have LG, beautiful campus. We have Unilever. We have other tech. We could be not Silicon Valley, we could be Silicon Cliffs. But the only way that we can move forward is if we unite and move forward. By uniting and moving forward and actively rebranding our town to make it the place to have a corporate headquarters, guess what? Our taxes will go down. Our land values will go up. We'll be once again super desirable. So I would really, I listened to a lot of people and a lot of people made some very good points. I've been sending out some emails. If you don't like them, please just click unsubscribe. That's all you have to do. I don't want to send emails to people that are not desiring those emails. So just hit unsubscribe. But you know what? Some of the people commented about the trench warfare. There's no way that we have a vision for the future and can be proactive to help guide our town in the future if we're down in the trenches, hurling things at each other. So I would highly recommend this is the time. This is the time to turn the corner and have a vision for the future and set things in place that are going to realize that vision. I firmly believe this is a wonderful town. It's a great town to have a corporate headquarters. Look at New York City right now. A lot of companies don't want to be there. They want to be a little bit outside. People are moving outside the city. So let's seize that opportunity now and let's move ahead in a civil way, talk to each other. After a council meeting, let's go over to the bike and let's bounce some ideas around and do some great things for the people in this community, keep the taxes low, and let's turn the corner and move ahead with vision. And I really firmly believe that we can do that, and we have to be committed to that. If not, it's going to be a disaster. It's up to the voters. Englewood Cliffs is in the balance, your town. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Mr. DiGregorio, your taxes are going to skyrocket with 450 or 600. So that I think that needs to be made clear. But I also want to mention that about 12 years ago, I wrote an op-ed piece about how Silicon Valley was moving to Silicon Alley. And then a year or two ago at a public meeting, I said, you know, one other reason why you should support 100% affordable housing is that we're actually destined to become Silicon Cliffs, and we need the commercial properties to remain commercial so that people would have a place to do their venture deals and startups and accelerators.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I hate to correct you, but
let me finish.
Mr. Mayor,
let me finish, please.
Okay.
You have to mute the resident because you had your chance. And
no, I coined the phrase Silicon Cliffs, but go ahead.
No. If you were at one of my meetings, you would have heard me say that because I was already there going from Silicon Valley to Silicon Alley into Silicon Cliffs. So we need those commercial properties to remain commercial. And that was the underlying.
I agree. Absolutely.
Let me finish, please.
I'm agreeing with you.
Mute him. That's not right. And so, you know, if you're taking Unilever's campus and making it residential and you're having these overlay zones, you could kiss Silicon Cliffs goodbye. In fact, you could kiss a lot of commercial properties goodbye because they're not going to be working here anymore. And, you know, I am a deep believer in teach a man how to fish, don't give him the fish, because if you have places to work, people could work and then they'll be able to afford wherever they want to live. It's all aspirational. That's America, not handouts. All right.
Mayor,
you know, honestly,
Mayor, I'd like to respond.
Next up was Angela.
No, Mayor, I'd like to respond to that comment you just made. You've been, you know, sitting on your pulpit there, spewing nonsense.
I can't see you. I'm sorry. I didn't.
The reality is, Mayor, the reality is that you're losing track of the fact that if we did not settle, you would have a much worse situation right now. So you can continue to say that this is not the best settlement. But if we walked away from this, you were going to get a lot worse. So this settlement actually works out better for the town. Nobody did this because it was lining their pockets. So you need to stop spreading those lies and those rumors to the residents because that's not the truth. And you know it.
And
so
you know what? You're
this
the
was the
convicted
best
tax
thing.
felon, not me.
This is the best thing for the residents in order to move forward and keep our town from being totally overlaid, having our residential vacant lands rezoned. There are a lot of things that could happen if we lose, and we will lose. And our attorneys told us that chances of appeal were slim. So what I'd like to say is that, you know what, I'm not going to go back and forth arguing with you about it. I am going to release the facts of what could happen if we lose appeal and what the settlement is. And people can make up their own minds as to what they want. But this whole conspiracy theory that we're all in this and we're all making money and we're all going to line our pockets is just absolutely ridiculous.
Here's the point that you miss and you don't represent to the public. The ink wasn't even dry on a 450 unit plan. The next day, the judge is bumping it up to 600 and you're all going along with it. Number one, no, I didn't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. And number two, my 100% affordable plan could have scaled to wherever we had to go to satisfy our number. And, you know, when the lawyers were under our control in 2017 and 2018, They're the ones who put that plan together. You came in 2019 in January, and you completely incinerated that plan and never looked at it again because you and your friends all wanted to do a deal with a developer who could make $500 million, okay? And the trickle-down effect of $500 million, I'll leave it to everyone's imagination. Where that money ends up. This is New Jersey. It's politics and it's construction.
You know, it's still my time, and I do think you're being very unfair. You know,
you were done.
Mayor Kranjak, this is not turning the corner.
No,
and this is not moving ahead.
By the way, I thought you were finished, sir.
No, I wasn't finished.
Oh, what else would you like to say?
And I really think we can debate, but you know what? We can't go back now. It is the best agreement that can be done. Hey, you know what? If you go back and you break the agreement, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have skyscrapers in town. You're going to have multi-unit dwellings. You're going to have two-family houses in residential, 3-family, 5-family houses in residential areas. We can't have that. We cannot have that. And this agreement prevents that. Do I want a multi-unit dwelling on Sarah Hill or on Wood right in back of me? That's prime land to build that stuff. But now we have immunity back, and that we should treasure, and we should have never, ever lost it. But let's not look back. Let's look forward as to how we can make this town great for seniors, for children, for everyone who lives here. And it ain't gonna happen if we're arguing here. We should be talking ideas, new ideas. We shouldn't be talking back and this and that and this one and that one and slinging mud. Let me hear some ideas from you. Let's hear it. Let's make this town something special.
It is special.
We're not. It is special. Let's make it more special. It is lost. We have to rebrand and move ahead. And that's the only way we can do it.
Okay.
Don't you realize that? Let's stop the arguing and move ahead.
I think we haven't even opened.
Okay, so let me just respond to that. You know, that might be the best plan the Democrats could do for Democrats, but my Republican administration had a better plan because it didn't destroy.
What's the plan, Mario?
Let me finish. You can have the floor after I'm done. So that might be the best plan that Debbie Sabari could do for her friends, but it wasn't the best plan for the town. Number one. Number two, Mr. DiGregorio, I know you're running for council and you're grandstanding, but you've also come to my meetings and told me how green and wonderfully Green New Deal supporter you are. But meanwhile, all weekend I was watching your campaign truck spew diesel all over the town. You know, you got to decide: are you going to be pro-environment, or are you going to be just?
Are you really doing this?
And then the other thing, Mr. DiGregorio, Ms. Valari asked, how did you get her email? Because she would never give it to you, and you never answered that question. So I'll. Okay, let me answer. It's very easy, Ms. Valari, with all due respect and very respectfully, please just click unsubscribe. I've sent 2 out and you've gotten, I think, both. Just hit unsubscribe. You'll never get an email again.
That was not the question, Mr. DiGregorio. The question was, how did you get my email?
Who gave it to you, Mr. DiGregorio?
I don't think it matters. I think it's public. Actually.
Why are you cross-examining me?
It matters to me, Ms. Sabari. It matters to me.
You know, I'm a resident right now. I was asked to run and I agreed, and I'm happy to run. And I would look forward to sitting at the same table with you, Mayor Kranjak, and working with you creatively to be. You know what? I'm not a divisive. I'm not going to split. I'm just because I voted for you in 2016, for crying out loud.
You made a good decision, but you're evading the question. And I did have a plan to redo all the parks, and you blocked it with Gloria.
It was a huge, very expensive plan.
Okay. Mr. DiGregorio, I remember you sitting on the floor.
Okay, we're getting out of control. Lizette, mute me.
On the floor.
Mute me. Mute me.
Trying to cause a riot, Mr. DiGregorio.
He's not going to answer that.
Why are people just screaming out?
They're unmuting themselves.
The next person is
started the 8 o'clock.
The next person I have is just says. I'm sorry, I don't see you on the screen.
There's a resident. The order would be resident, Ms. Chang, and then SM.
Hi, can you hear me?
Who's that speaking?
Resident.
Oh, yes.
Speaking on behalf of a couple people, actually.
Okay, so you need to identify yourself by name.
Thank you. I want to speak on behalf of a lot of people. I have a huge problem with the fact that the meeting to have this decision made to bring 600 units in was conducted on a Christian Sabbath on Sunday. So you're immediately eliminating a huge portion of people that this directly impacts. I don't think that was fair. People were turned away. I think that's pretty disgusting.
I agree.
And I think that's grounds for a lawsuit for religious discrimination. So I would like some more information on why that was done, why that was decided. The other part of this is, Miss Sabari, Miss O, Mr. Versa, I don't know if you think that people are buying this, that you guys aren't lining your pockets, but Miss O, the fact that you sold a home a year ago, knowing that this was coming, do you think that looks good? The fact that Mr. Aversa owns one of the properties that these developments are going to be put on, do you think that looks good? Ms. Sabari, do you think you don't come off as a total fraud? And I'm sorry, Mr. Di Gregorio, you're virtue signaling to the highest degree. But if you don't think that the residents of this town have a problem with Democrats taking advantage of us to line their own pockets, which you obviously are, Ms. Sabari, cut the shit, I'm sorry.
Shame on you.
You have another thing coming. You have another thing coming. Excuse me, I'm speaking. You're selling out the residents of this town, and you've sold your own souls. And if you don't think you're going to answer for both, you're going to have another thing coming. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, for the record, can you state your name and address, please?
No, thank you.
You have to.
Then your comment.
I don't have to do anything. Thank you.
Then I suggest all her commentary be stricken from any records that are on the borough site.
Of course you would.
Well, that's how it works. I'm sorry. Everybody has an obligation to state their name and address. It's
I'm
just a rule.
speaking on behalf of a lot of people who are pissed off about being taken advantage of. And if you guys don't see that, I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? If you don't state your name and address, your comments will not be reflected.
Those are
Many people did not give their names. Why are you picking on residents?
She's not going back and forth. You had your turn. Clerk, please mute her.
Guys, okay, thank you. For the resident, I know the resident had a question. Why was the meeting held at 2 p.m. on Sunday, which is a Christian Sabbath? I raised that same question, and I objected to the meeting based on religious grounds as well. However, the 4 Democrats on council calculated that, or actually miscalculated in part, that there wouldn't be any people coming on to the call at 2 p.m. And instead we had over 100. People got turned away. They were not allowed back in. I got complaints from people. So it was religious intolerance that resulted in a meeting on Sunday at 2 p.m. I would never do that on a Friday for a Jewish.
Mario, you absolutely know the reason.
Here's the thing.
At the meeting.
I think the resident had a lot of good points, and
you know what? The residents' comments will not be reflected on the minutes because she failed to state her name and address.
It's okay. Maybe she
Let's move on.
She feels intimidated by
move on.
Political machine will do to her.
You had meetings on Sundays, Mayor.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you have.
You had a meeting on Holy Thursday.
No. It's
you had a meeting on Holy Thursday. So please stop it. Stop the politicking.
A religious day of observance is a Sunday. Holy Thursday is actually not the same.
Holy Thursday is probably one of the very big observed.
Mario, you want to go there? You want to say Holy Thursday is not a holy day?
No, Holy Thursday is not a.
Can you imagine? Maybe Good Friday isn't either.
Not a day of obligation as
you're pathetic, Mario.
Friday and Easter.
Okay, you're just.
Mario, look up the word Pharisee.
Can we move on with the meeting? We're still in the closed session.
Mayor, the next person waiting to speak is Ms. Chang.
I was speaking, you interrupted me.
Just letting you know.
Yeah, so look, I don't want to have meetings on Sundays. I thought the whole meeting was invalid for different reasons, including the Bergen County Blue laws.
Okay, Mayor, we're still in caucus.
We are actually, and I appreciate.
I'm thinking that we have to set limits on speaking time because
No.
this is out of control again.
No, it's good to hear from the public, and it's good for you to hear.
I like to hear from the public, but this is not hearing from the public. They're actually going at each other and they're talking to each other.
It's okay. It's democracy. It's a dialogue, and you know, we'll try to do better in terms of being more civil, because I think Ms. Alvarado did raise a very good point this evening. So who is next?
Ms. Chang.
Ms. Chang, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Angela Chen, attorney to Sarah Hill. I just want to make some comments. I heard Mr. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name very correctly. Gregorio, sorry. Apologize for my pronunciation. But I heard your comments. I understand you are the candidates for this time, and you're running on behalf of Democrats. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised to hear what you have said, because you're saying that this town can still be turned to a silicon cliff with this kind of settlement deal. You know, I was laughing at it, because if you don't understand what the settlement will really bring to this town, I don't think you can be qualified to run for this position, because you don't really understand what the settlement will bring to the town, the results. Okay, so, you know, one thing I want to really emphasize here is that nobody talk about what is overlay zones. You probably do not understand what is overlay zone. Let me tell you, if you have this overlay zone, you give the developer or the owners an additional option to make them into residential. So this land can turn into residential easily. Everybody's saying, oh, CNBC is not going to move away. But look, if the land is more valuable, as a corporate, they're making money, right? They need to achieve profit. Do you think if the land makes a lot of money, they will keep it, not selling it? I can tell you, I work in the financial industry. I know that this is a trend for a lot of big corporates to sell their land, because that makes their balance sheet or their income statement look really good, because they want to achieve that profit. Once you turn it into residential, there's no turning back. This is a very important moment for this town. I'll tell you this. Once we lose these big corporate campus, we're not going to have it back ever. Democrats are destroying this town. This is not a good deal. I'll let you know. I'll explain to you if you don't understand. So this settlement potentially will create 2,700 residential units. But if the judge ruled on us, potentially we're getting close to 3,000. There's about 100 units of difference from the worst outcome of the judge's ruling and this settlement. If you can do the math, it's only 100 units difference, and we're going to have potentially 2,700 units. You will say, okay, maybe not every commercial owner will turn it to residential. Let's reduce it. Say, let's reduce this to half. It still be over 1,000 units. We are a town of 1,800 households. If we get another 1,000 units, what will happen to this town? I don't care if my tax is not going to go up, if my property value is not going to go down. I don't care how many more units are going to be built. The reality is, if you build more units, then high density units, then the existing homeowner are going to suffer. The property tax is going to be doubled at least. And I'll tell you that you mentioning taking care of the seniors. I'm so to hear you say, you're so shameful to say that, because do you know a lot of senior people, they cannot pay the property tax anymore. If the property tax are doubled, they will be forced to leave this town. This is what you want to do? Also, I want to mention, you're into the green things. Do you know how many big trees are going to be cut down because they're going to build 600 units or whatever units on 800 Sylvan? Have you studied that? You're running for this council seat and you have no clue what is happening. I just feel really, I don't understand, like, how can you run this without totally understanding what the settlement will bring to this town? And up to today, no impact analysis have been done on property tax, on what the facility, the infrastructure of this town can afford. Nothing has been done. And schools, if you're going to pack to the schools, are we going to build another 2 schools? Do we have the land to build that? And how much more cost would that be? Of course, I love this town, but I just don't want to see this town being destroyed. I heard another resident mention that, she moved here for 6 months. She already regret, what kind of town is this? Why people are fighting? I also regret that I moved to this town because I'm not aware that this town, Democrats council people are selling residents' interests. They colluded with the attorneys. There's proof of it. And attorneys and Democrat council members, they're trying to do all the things to destroy this town. For what? Of course, they have their own reasons. If you want me to believe there's nothing behind the door, okay, I'm not that stupid, okay? Thank you.
Mayor, the next person is SN.
Muted, and I could not unmute myself.
No, okay. The next person is SN.
Initials SN.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Sudha Manvar. I live at 26 West Bayview Avenue. And I'm no lawyer, I'm no politician, but it is really regrettable that the democratic concept, supposedly to be carried forward with Democratic Council members, they don't seem to be democratic at all. I have been in the process of writing to them emails. They have never responded to say, thank you for your email or nothing. So I don't even know if they care what I have to say or what I am going to ask of them. When I write to congressmen and senators, I always hear from their offices. Yes, they may have secretarial staff who respond, but our town with 1,800 units and all these people who have been elected, some of them I may have voted, and you don't even have the decency to answer our email, whether we agree with you or not. That is a shame, shameful. The other thing is, Mr. Di Gregorio, I know you are running, but your speech was as if you were on a campaign trail. Please address to the people. We are not here to listen to how you are going to work and all that. Voice your feelings as a resident, not that you are campaigning for your interest. The other thing I want to point out, we have obviously council members with conflict of interest. And how is it that their vote still counts and that vote is presented to the lawyers and the judges? Isn't this something that one can contest in the court, that Ms. Sabari, Dr. Aversa, all these people have interest, conflicting interests on the property? How could they be voting for the council? Can't you just say that this vote is not valid? What is our lawyers going to say? And then I saw something, I don't know how authentic it is, saying that Mr. Wunsch is not even allowed to practice after October 5. So how is it that he goes and represents us on October 6 and goes through the resolution and says, yes, 400 unit, 450 units or 600 units? It's beyond my understanding how this person, out of all the 3 or 4 lawyers, is still being part of the body. I mean, please explain. I'm a lay person, not a politician, not a lawyer, but what kind of democracy is this? And what kind of council is this that doesn't even look at the interest of the residents? I have been residing here for 40 years, and I have never heard any resident say that they are against affordable housing. We had 2 Mayor Parisis. Why didn't they start? I don't know, but they could have prevented what we are going through right now. But why are we having people with conflicting interest cast a vote, pass a resolution, and still it is valid in the court? Please explain.
So I appreciate those comments. As the mayor, I agree with everything you said, and I'll wait for one of the Democrats on council to defend themselves and their actions. Indefensible, I guess.
No, I'm not going to repeat myself again. I've answered this question on numerous occasions. And I just feel like, you know what, I can say whatever I'm going to say.
Why don't you respond to my email?
I'm sorry, you know what, if I didn't respond to your email, first of all, I don't remember getting an email from you. But if you would like to forward that to me, what exactly did it say that I didn't respond to? But I will respond to it. We probably will be in disagreement because obviously by your statements, we are not in agreement that a settlement is the appropriate thing for the town. So
no, but you cannot do anything to change my mind, okay? When I wrote, you should have answered me and given me your reasons. You are my councilwoman.
Again, if I didn't see your email, so if you want to address an email to me, I'd be more than happy to answer it. I'm on these council meetings. I do answer questions. It's not always what people want to hear, but they are my opinions, and I am an elected official, and I'm doing what I believe is right for the town. And I think what we're all losing track of here is that if we did not settle, we would get worse. And this is actually, we had a better plan a year ago. I'm sorry that back then we didn't vote to just settle then. It was a mistake. And now we're forced to actually take on more. And that's the reality. I mean, if nobody talks about, the Republicans, and it is the Republicans, will tell you that they're going to fight and that we're going to win on appeal. But they have been warned that the chances are slim to none. We have lost every single case. This is the right thing for the town. Is it the best? No, nobody wants this. But we have to look at the situation as a whole, and we have to make decisions that people aren't going to like. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that don't like this decision to settle. But you know what? I'm doing what I believe is best. And that's all I can say to you. And you have the right to disagree with me. And you have the right when I'm up for re-election not to vote for me. But that's all I can say. I'm doing what I know is right. I know that my pockets are not being lined, and none of the other Democrats that are being accused of getting something out of this are getting anything. And, can I change your mind? I don't know. But I'm
no, you
you
lost your opportunity,
right
man.
now.
No, you lost your opportunity to change my mind.
Okay,
Because
that's okay. I don't need to change your mind.
I don't need to change your mind. You do.
Once again, I've said, I've had my statements, I put them out there, and this is my statement. And I'm sorry that you don't agree. That's okay. That's what the country is about. We get to agree to disagree. Thank you.
I would have liked you to say that when you got my email.
I don't even know what your email was. I didn't get it.
I know. All the 4 Democratic Council people are going to say they never got it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to write to you. That time I wrote to you in detail. You didn't have the decency, ma'am. You lost your opportunity to.
I thank you. I thank you for your comments.
Unver, thank you for your comments. I agree with you. The thing that's not being stated by Ms. Sabari and the others is that had we appealed and lost, we'd really be marginally no worse off than we are right now. So
That wouldn't be true.
please don't interrupt me. That's what defies logic.
You keep lying to the public.
No, you could have appealed and you lost your trials
You
because
have appealed yet.
let me
And
finish.
you know that.
No,
You're
no.
an attorney.
Now you're interrupting me, which is
You
not.
don't have the right to
before
appeal
after me.
yet.
No. You could have appealed and you didn't. And at the trial, you called 2 witnesses. 2. Okay, 2 witnesses. That's not a trial. That's a surrender. And I think Mr. Wunsch said it during the public meeting last week that they surrendered. So they did. They surrendered for whatever reason. I don't see anyone else from the public right now.
There's an iPhone XR, Mayor, with their hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. iPhone XR. If you're there, iPhone XR, please speak now.
Hi, this is Meow, 256 Alfred Street. I just wanted to mention something. It looks like the other resident SM's question hasn't been addressed regarding attorney Albert Wunsch. I don't know if anyone can give us any answer as to, I guess, like, I mean, that situation seems very puzzling to a resident. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a politician, so I don't really know what's going on over there.
Okay, so my understanding is because our meeting started on October 4th and it ended on October 5th, given the way the meeting went, I looked into a few things on October 5th and I was shocked to find that he was placed on a list, I think it was on September 29th by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, where there's a list of lawyers who are deemed ineligible to practice law for various reasons. Usually it's that you didn't pay your annual fee. It could be other reasons as well. And he was on that list. So as of October 5th, he was ineligible to practice law. I don't know whether or not he's reinstated himself, but on October 5th, when he was answering questions to the public, because we were there till 2 in the morning, he was not eligible to practice law when he was practicing law. And I'll leave it to our borough council to fight or defend his buddy there. But that's all I can say right now. I don't have any other information on that, but it's all documented.
I believe in closed session, Mr. Wunsch said that that was not correct and that these type of errors happen. And this has to do with like filing a form. And actually a couple of the attorneys for our current planning board are also on that same list.
Well, this isn't about them, Mr. Barr.
Obviously, Mayor, let me finish. Obviously, there's some problem with that. So we were assured by our attorney that he's not on the list. So let's just leave it at that.
Well, let's actually not.
You're very well aware of how that works, and you're very well aware that the attorney Randall, who represents the planning board, is currently on that same list.
Well, I'm an attorney. I'm not on that list. So you know why I'm not on that list? Because I play by the rules. Okay, that's why I'm not on that.
Are you saying you're not on that list? So your attorneys for the planning board are, and that's okay.
Look,
okay, sorry. I think I'm still having the floor, right? I don't really want accusations.
Okay, your answer to your question is the attorney has told us that in fact he's not on the list.
Well, he didn't show us. He told us, and he also look. I'm looking at an order signed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New Jersey, dated September 29th, 2020. If you go to page 13, there's a list of lawyers ineligible to practice law. Albert Wunsch is on that list as of October 5th, okay? So he would have known this was coming, and just whatever he should have done, he didn't do. But he certainly is always ready to send us a bill for his services, right?
Right, seems to, I mean, just for the optic, it looks like the special meeting being called on October 4th has to do with the fact that, I mean, I don't know, just optic from like a pure outsider standpoint, it seems pretty suspicious to me. Another question, I guess is I'm still puzzled. What was the settlement agreement being I guess being presented to the court? And it seems like I have been receiving conflicted information. Certain people told me that the judge postponed the hearing to November 30th, and certain people said it's already a done deal. Could someone maybe make a comment on that?
Mr. Marinello, can you take that question?
Well, I actually have a hard time answering it because I'm not the affordable housing attorney. I know that the settlements were signed and the consent orders were entered by Judge Farrington this week, I think yesterday actually. And I know that as of now, there is a fairness hearing scheduled for sometime in December.
Okay, so what happened to the special hearing, I guess last Tuesday? Because I was told the judge was fairly upset about how the meeting was conducted, and also a lot of residents couldn't have the chance to dial in, and therefore the meeting was, I guess the hearing was postponed till month end, I guess November 30th. I mean, I don't know if that's a fact or any.
I can tell you that I know nothing about that. I never heard that. I never heard about a November 30th date. I don't know anything about residents not being able to get in. It's possible, but I'm not the attorney on that file, so it's hard for me to.
Then who's the attorney on that file? Sorry, I'm completely clueless here.
We have 3 attorneys on that file: Tom Troutner, Jeff Serenian, and Albert Wunsch.
Okay, and another that actually linked to another question I have. I also saw another email. So Jeff, I forgot the last name, emailed to Albert Wunsch that he's not like a professional, but then people keep referring to his opinion as like the professional opinion. He's the best in class, that type of figure. So I'm also confused on that statement.
I really don't know what to tell you about that, except to say that several years ago, before I was involved in the town hired Mr. Serenian, who is one of the preeminent affordable housing lawyers in the state, and also hired Tom Troutner, who is a preeminent litigator in the state. Perhaps it's because Mr. Serenian is not a litigator by trade. He is an affordable housing lawyer. And if you're following affordable housing at all around the state, you'll realize that there have been very few trials on affordable housing. So I don't know why the borough hired the 2 of them, except to say that they are both extremely distinguished attorneys in this field. And it wouldn't surprise me that that was what the borough did at that time.
Thank you for the information. I guess it's just a lot of, as a resident, we don't really know a lot of facts, and I'd like to see facts. And also the other resident mentioned the impact analysis. I mean, why, if we didn't do any impact analysis, how can we know the settlement is the best deal that could happen to the town? As the other resident mentioned, who's also running for the councilman, that just really puzzling me. I mean, like, once we know all the facts, I guess at that point we can say for a fact that this is a good deal. Otherwise, it's just, I mean, I don't know what to say. All right, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. You know, actually, I'd like to use this opportunity, since I know we're going to lose people, but use this opportunity to thank everyone who were able to join on October 4th for 12.5 hours, for hanging in there. Many people stayed on the whole time, which was is a testament to your belief in democracy and wanting to be heard. There were also people who were not able to join, unfortunately, because the Zoom was filled at 2 p.m. and at 2:45, they did not return, I understand. So the council owes you an apology for that, if not more. because at the time I said we should reconvene because it's an Open Public Meetings Act violation to have people turned away and not know that they could rejoin. But for the people who stayed on for 12 and a half hours, we all watched your pockets get picked by the 4 people on the Democrats on council. Your home values declined.
Open the regular meeting.
Let me finish. Okay. And you know, you basically now you've joined the other 300 towns in New Jersey whose residents didn't even realize that they were getting ripped off by affordable housing scheme the way it's implemented. All I want to have is judges act as judges, legislators act as legislators, and give elected officials in our town the opportunity to cure our own problems. And we were not given that. To make matters worse, as I mentioned, on October 5th, we found out that Albert Wunsch was ineligible to practice law. And then they all on October 6th, they went to court on October 6th with what they thought was a great 450 unit plan. And they basically left there with a 600 unit plan.
That is not the truth.
Let me finish.
No,
both plans are being reviewed, but I see where this is going.
You're lying.
Hold on a second, let me finish. Now, Judge Farrington appointed a special hearing officer, which is a retired judge by name of Gallipoli. Judge Gallipoli actually is retired, as I mentioned, but he works at a law firm. That law firm is adverse to this town because they've written letters adverse to me on behalf of our former police chief. So just to go through the conflict checks at that law firm must be a joy because they missed something very blatant. But one comment I understand was made by Judge Gallipoli on October 6th was that he criticized the way we ran our meeting on October 4th. And it wasn't because we did it on the Christian Sabbath. He basically criticized it for other reasons. Well, you know what? Welcome to democracy, Judge Gallipoli. I know you're from Hudson County, and maybe it looks a lot different when people actually have the opportunity. Our people get to speak, and I will let them speak, and I will not be shouted down by Judge Gallipoli, who wanted to basically say that it's going to be different with him. Well, how much different will it be? I mean, you basically are cramming down onto this town a plan for 450, but at the same time, you're revising our agreement for 600. I don't understand how you can do that.
Mario.
Now, if you Google Judge Gallipoli and Judge Farrington, hold on a second.
Political pulpit.
Let me finish. If you Google Judge Gallipoli and Judge Farrington, you may also be scratching your head as to why there are any connections between the two of them. So look, the Democrats sold you out. There's an agreement in place that we have to comply with.
Nobody sold anybody out. You need to stop.
The other thing that came out and that we learned last week, I don't know if it's true, but I assume it is because it was in a campaign flyer. It was a copy of an email between Jeff Serenian, our affordable housing attorney, and Al Wunsch, basically saying that Tom Troutner, this is January 2019, that Tom Troutner said that Debbie Sabari is conflicted from voting. I've been asking them for years if she's conflicted. They said no, but meanwhile, in the email to each other, they said yes, and she voted. So if you're a resident and you're listening, my hands are tied, but yours aren't.
Actually, that's not the truth either, but go on.
My hands are tied, but yours are not, okay? We've got elected to lead this
So what
town.
are you proposing they do, Mario? What are you
proposing anything? The
I'm-
residents have rights. And then
Yes, you're telling them that
you're shrieking at this point. You have to let me speak, and you can speak after if you
I'd like
want.
to know what you're asking the residents.
I'm not asking anyone to do anything. I'm just saying that the day after the agreement was signed, Normandy breached it because it wants 600 now, okay? That wasn't the deal. The
That
deal
is not what they want. That is not what it says.
we as a borough have to comply with the deal. And I am also pointing out that procedurally, there are issues of conflict of interest, Debbie, and thou protesteth too much at this moment.
That's not true.
Right, and who's gonna believe you anyway, Debbie, right? So look, there's problems with the way this was done. I'm saying this now rather than at the regular meeting because I see that we have a lot of people on. I think what I want to do is start the regular meeting. If there's, I don't see anyone else.
Mayor, there's 3 people waiting, Jana,
yeah.
Iona,
So
and
Yana's
Karen.
next. Yana's next. Okay.
Hold on, let me unmute her.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Okay. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Jana Maimon, 197 Pershing and 98 Roberts. Basically, I just want to know where we stand because I am at a crossroads. Both my husband, my 3 children, we've been in town for 10 years. We love this town so much. We purchased another lot to build our dream home. We've been caught in the crossfires of all this. And, I can't put my kids' lives or my lives anymore on hold. Having said that, again, we love this town, but I need to know for our well-being, where do we stand with all of this? Are we in a settlement? Are we going to go ahead and litigate further, and then my lot is still going to be in the fire of all this? So somebody give me some direction, if you don't mind. Sorry, go ahead.
As I understand it, Ms. Jana, Ms. Maimon, we are settled, and there's a settlement agreement in place. As much as some of us don't like it, and Marinello to give you some legal advice there in terms of where you stand.
Hi, Mrs. Maimon. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you, Mr. Marinello. How are you?
Good. I believe I spoke with your, maybe it's your brother-in-law, and also I spoke with your husband over the last couple of weeks. And I would invite you to ask Peter to call me tomorrow to get a proper explanation of where we are, because some of it's a little in between things. We are settled. Without the settlement, your property at 98 Roberts would have been subject to zoning that would have included multifamily housing. Yours is one
aware of that. Yeah.
When you hear people talking about the lots in residential neighborhoods that might have been moved to multifamily affordable housing, yours was one of them. But the settlement would avoid that. The settlement is in place, but some of the issues regarding how, and in your case, you're looking for, I know, ultimately to do some building permits and to move forward with that. So that's stuff that I would like to talk to Peter about, and then I can try and get some answers from the special hearing officer, Judge Gallipoli, as to when it will be appropriate for those to be pulled. But I know that I spoke to Gallipoli about it. I forwarded his email to Peter. So I know we're working to try and get that resolved for you so you can develop that lot.
Okay, because we've been in a standstill for quite some time. I mean, I'm still paying taxes on a lot that I can't build on. And, as much as I don't want high density housing like the rest of us in this town, unfortunately, I don't know what the right way is or the wrong way is or what the answer is, but I just know that this can't go on any further for us. We're done.
Right, I understand that. I'm hoping that we can get that resolved for you.
Okay, all right. So I should have my attorneys call you tomorrow?
Yes, that's fine. They have my number and my email address. They can reach out for me.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mayor Iona was next, and I may be pronouncing her name wrong, but I don't see her now. Oh, here she is. I see her.
No, Ms. Geiger is next.
Okay, and then Miss Iona. Hold on. Ms. Geiger, you're unmuted.
Okay, Karen Geiger, 270 Alfred. A few things. I'm somewhat surprised when I listen to the conversations going back and forth about the 600 units and the 450. I too listened in on the Judge Gallipoli's hearing, and it was very clear that what he was ruling in the issue in the name of efficiency, and the argument was made by the attorney representing the planning board, was that the two site plans, the one for 600, which had already been reviewed by the planning board and for which hearing was supposed to have started 2 weeks ago, but was postponed until November 30th. And the hearing for the 450 would be done simultaneously, because basically the difference between the 650 plan, the 600 plan, excuse me, and the 450 plan is the elimination of one building and the addition of townhouses in its place. According to the site plans presented on the borough website, other than that, they're fairly similar. And since the planning board has spent so much time and effort appropriately reviewing the 600 plan, it seems to me that the subset of that, the smaller plan, should be a very simple thing to do. I am also going to read to you because it seems there's some confusion. In the settlement agreement that was signed with 800 Sylvan Avenue, in section 11, which deals with breach of the settlement agreement, it specifically speaks about the original 800 Sylvan plan. And it says that if this agreement is terminated, it reinstates all prior orders entered by the court in full. And that includes the 600 unit builder's remedy plan. So the settlement agreement spoke to the reinstatement of that. And as I understand it as well, the consent order signed by Judge Farrington this week also speaks to it in section 8. It says, if the Borough of Englewood Cliffs, the planning board, or any other agency tries to reverse, overturn, otherwise affect any decision previously entered by this court in any court, 800 Sylvan will be permitted to pursue the development of the builder's remedy plan previously approved by the court and entered on February 12th, 2020, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. So these are both consistent. There's no material change of anything. This was foreseen in the settlement agreement. It was included in the settlement agreement. And all that Judge Gallipoli was doing, and I don't quite understand why the planning board has such an issue with it, is hearing the two concurrently so that if there were to be a breach, which I'm glad to hear there won't be, they would not start the process anew at great expense to review the larger plan. The other comments I would like to make is something that Mr. Perino spoke to, and when he said that we should have been thinking about the town. Everyone should have been thinking about the town. Well, I have to say, Mr. Perino, where was the planning board in 2017 when it turned down a corporate development? Were you really thinking about the town at that point? Because that's what triggered this entire debacle in our community. And I also want to comment factually that in 1994, 1995, 1996, 2010, 2011, 2016, 2017, and 2018, control of this council resided with the Republicans, and not a single unit of affordable housing was built. So this isn't just a Democratic issue. It's been a part of the history of this town for the past 40 years, no matter who had control. No one put a shovel in the earth to build the 4 units or the 9 units. And neither of those would have been sufficient when 800 Sylvan became vacant and developable land, increasing our obligation. And on the issue of, since I do study all the court papers, in the case brought by Mr. Kranjak, by Mayor Kranjak, and by Mr. Mehta, who, by the way, his attorney also appeared on that list, that the mayor seems to show us repeatedly about Mr. Wunsch being included. But Judge Farrington ruled that there was no conflict because she viewed affordable housing remedies and settlements as different from MLUL, planning board, law, and issues. And the planning board, we must all understand, by the judge's April 17th order, lost its authority and was replaced with Judge Gallipoli. So until this entire process is concluded, Judge Gallipoli has the authorization to hear all planning board zoning issues, and in fact, most issues in the town affecting planning. And the hearing officer's rescheduling of the November 30th was the site plan only It was not the builder's remedy. The builder's remedy was approved in February of 2020. It is in place. There are 600 units approved, and it is the settlement agreement that was signed, that was approved by the borough, that reduces that number to 450. But they have the right, if there is a breach, and I read you the specific components of the two orders, that to revert back to the 600. So people should be aware that there is a lot of risk with any attempt to undo this settlement. And the borough, by the way, Mr. Kranjak, as you well know, is compelled by these settlement agreements to defend the actions of the borough should anybody other than the borough challenge it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, Marty. I heard you in the background. You did a good job as well. Here's the thing. Ms. Geiger has never argued on behalf of the borough. She has always, always, always taken the side of Normandy. My goodness, Ms. Geiger, they're going to put a statue of you up right in front of that development when it's done. No, I have the floor now. By the way, the agreement says 450, not 600. We shouldn't be wasting money approving a plan for 600, okay?
Not, you already spent the money doing that.
Let me finish. You have Marty there to talk to you.
Please don't insult my husband.
450 is what was agreed to. No job. Not even you could change that number right now, because as long as the borough is performing, there's no breach. And to make the borough go spend money to approve a 600 unit plan just tells me that there's probably more here than you're all telling us, okay? Don't lie to the public. You'll get your statue, I'm sure, because you did such a fine job. You did such a fine job for Normandy.
Really off
Yeah.
You
wait.
Mr. Mayor, once again,
there's going to be one of those side streets inside that development called Geiger Way.
The mayor is distorting what I said.
No,
He's
your time was up.
distorting the legal case
Mrs.
that I
Katrubis.
brought against the planning board for refusing to approve a
You finish, Ms. Geiger. Go write your next newsletter.
corporate building on their property.
By the way, what
So
you forgot to
please,
tell
Mr.
everyone-
Mayor,
what you
don't
forgot to tell everyone
distort
is that
and
I'm the
lie
first mayor
about
for 22 years.
Can you mute the
Do this.
mayor and let the
This
resident finish?
is next.
No, Council President, I'm not going to mute the mayor. I'm not going
Then
to
he
mute
has to
the
stop and let the resident finish. Stop being
The resident said thank you. She was
disrespectful.
finished.
Only residents that don't get to
She was
speak, are the
finished.
ones that don't
Said
agree
thank
with
you.
you.
And
Mr.
by the way,
Mayor.
Ms. Geiger, you forget that I'm the first mayor in 42 years to actually have delivered a plan, and a shovel would have been in the
That's
ground.
not true.
Except
That's not
for
true.
your
That's not
candidates.
true, Mayor.
For your
That's not
candidates who
true.
got on the council and
That's
stopped
not
that
true.
shovel. They
That's
stopped
true.
that shovel, but they hired a sculptor for you.
That's
Okay?
not true.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
not true,
I
Mr.
look
Mayor.
forward to seeing
It
your
was-
statue. Mrs. Katrubis is next. Ms. Geiger, please mute Ms.
You
Geiger.
should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of it, please.
Good
Okay,
evening.
please. Marty, we could hear you, please. It's getting
Are you
ridiculous.
able to hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Iona Katrubis, 54 Hickory Street. Several have mentioned this evening and at other meetings that nobody would have anything to gain by fighting against this settlement. And I've also heard people say that they trust our attorneys. Let me just point out that our attorneys would no longer have clients if, as affordable housing experts, they took down fair share with this suit. We know that they did not fight for us. And as an attorney, I'm telling you that they definitely did not do an adequate job here. We can't stop fighting. And I'll tell you why, because the environment today is not what it was when Mount Laurel decision came down. For those of you who don't know, Mount Laurel is the case that yielded the doctrine under which the affordable housing requirement was born in this state. We have a government today that does not permit that is not pro punishing homeowners in the name of affordable housing. We have COVID. I mean, the absurdity of considering multi-dwelling housing during COVID. The overlay zone, commercial property is no longer desirable. Nobody goes to work. Nobody goes to the office. What do you think is going to happen to these properties? They're going to become residential. The owners will cash in. They would be stupid not to do that. And I don't think that they are stupid. The Mount Laurel Doctrine, by the way it's being interpreted is unconstitutional. It was not intended to punish and to destroy the middle class and the elderly to the extent that this settlement does. You are doing worse, council persons, than the Mount Laurel Doctrine, because the Mount Laurel Doctrine has evolved into something that is completely ridiculous. You are surrendering, and you're doing so in our name. And as elected officials, you really have an obligation to do more than that. You've failed us. And as you can hear from most of the residents on this call, we are extremely frustrated. This process has been arduous. We've been on calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, at midnight, and for some reason that I'm sure will come to light someday, your actions obviate common sense. We have to continue to fight this. Doing anything other than that is completely absurd. And I'd like to just go back to Mr. Marianello's legal opinion, because really he has insulted the intelligence of every licensed attorney in advising that the planning board, which is created by statute, should not be funded in any instance involving settlement. You would be impinging on the statutory rights designed to create a system of checks and balances if you pass this. This is a system that was created by statute to protect our residents, and you are taking it down with a settlement agreement? You should be ashamed of yourselves. And Gloria O and Mr. Jimmy Song, you are licensed attorneys. You know better. You should be held to a higher standard.
Thank you, Mrs. Katrubis. By the way, are you
One thing
married
the public
to?
may not know is that Mr. Chris Martin, who was the prior planning board attorney, interestingly now represents the Chiaffi properties that are the only property named in the settlement agreement. So now what the planning board has done is hired new attorneys or a new attorney. And what do the Democratic majority go and do? They try to vote to defund him. I mean, all signs are pointing to the fact that this new attorney is not in your pocket. And I really, really hope that you think twice here.
Actually, those new attorneys have done work for me on a Jersey City project and have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they're actually conflicted, and that's actually being reviewed right now.
Well, is that because you have an interest in the deal we just did? I don't understand. Where's the conflict?
Where's the conflict? That they actually work for me? You're kidding me, right?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not sure what capacity they work for you, but are you saying that because
They are
work for the
attorneys
borough,
for me, working on a project.
they're not adverse to you, though?
If the planning board is looking to try to reverse our settlement agreement, it will be against the council.
But that's because you're breaking the law by doing that. So that doesn't
I'm
make
not
them
breaking the law.
You created the adversity, not them.
God.
I didn't create any adversity.
All right. Mrs. Katrubis, are you finished?
Mayor, can we close the caucus meeting and go into the regular meeting? We haven't even started our 8 p.m.
There's more
regular meeting.
There's two more people, Mayor, Council President, there's two more people with their hands up.
Can they speak at the regular meeting?
No, they have an opportunity to speak now and again later if they wish. So Young Lee is next. I only see the name So Young.
Yes, hi. No, and Miles Bay, he's on the third page.
Okay. Yep.
Hi, okay. So Young Lee, 195 Persian Road. I just heard from this Democratic candidate, Mr. DiGregorio, about this best settlement out there.
I think we lost her. Can we go to the next person and she could speak when she gets back on?
Back. Go.
Sure, I guess. Mayor, is that all right?
Well, she's back. Do you see her? She's on the.
No, she's not.
She is. I'm telling you where she is. She's on the second page.
Oh, okay.
Column. She's under Ryan. Q.
Oh, I see her. I see her.
Found you.
Under Ryan, correct?
It's my son's name, but my name is So Young.
Okay.
I don't know. Whenever I try to speak, I get disconnected. So I feel there may be anyway. So I just heard Mr. DiGregorio's argument about this best settlement, and I'm going to make a few points. But the first point is, can any council person, and including Mr. DiGregorio, can answer what's the cost if 2,000 units in overlay zones are fully developed? Don't tell us those are not going to be developed because they are doing fine. We assume those will be developed very soon. So can anybody tell us the full scope in terms of cost, including school, infrastructure, police stations, fire stations, make sewage better or work? Because as of now, our town sewage system for 18 housing units are pretty backed up. So can anybody tell us what the full impact of this settlement if 2,700 units are fully built at 807 and in the overlay zones?
I don't think they could tell you that because they didn't do the impact studies.
Did you?
Then let me ask you
This was your
this.
show.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Then how do you know this is the best settlement? I remember, because those legal fees of $3 million so that we can save $3 million in exchange for $100 million of property tax that will be payable by residents for the rest of our life? Is that your argument? Please explain. I mean, you said this is a best settlement that we could have gotten, and I'm still not understanding how this can be
You want my answer? What do you think the courts were going to give you when you lost the appeal?
I can tell you. As an attorney, I can tell you.
You have any idea what the density level would go to? The height level?
Sure.
No, you don't. You have no
There
idea.
are laws. There are laws called constitutional laws. The court is trial court.
Obviously, we lost the trial.
They are not goddess. No, we are not lost trial yet.
We
just
lost the trial.
We will have
the trial.
Excuse me, I have the floor. Could you please stop interrupting?
Don't ask me to answer your questions, please.
Yeah, no. I'm answering your question, and while I'm answering your question, you keep interrupting so that I cannot answer properly. So let me finish my answer, and then you can supplement. So we have not lost a trial, and you know why we lost trial? Because these lawyers, whose clients are the Democrats, not the resident, they did not do their job at all.
Okay,
they stopped sharing the information. Excuse me, I'm still speaking. Please do not interrupt me. And in terms of, they colluded with the 4 Democratic council members, and they didn't do a good job. I mean, come on, like I could have.
Come on, listen to yourself.
Hold on. I could have done a better job, and I'm not even a litigator. So I mean, that means how good a job that they have done. So that's why we lost the trial. That's why we lost trial, because you wanted to sell this settlement. That's why. So okay, so we lost the trial at the trial level, and Judge Barrington is just a judge at the Superior Court level. Do you think her decisions will be upheld by the appeal? you yourself acknowledge that her decisions have been arbitrary and unreasonable. And only because we want to save $3 million of legal fees that have been paid to these lawyers that work for you, that's why you are taking away our property rights. I thought, I'm still waiting for you, all of you, Democratic Council members and Mr. DeGregorio, because you are selling this as the best settlement ever. I want to understand the impact of this settlement in terms of the cost if 2,700 units are fully built. And you know what? Also, those sneaky terms that you presented at 8 o'clock on Friday, saying 20 units per acre for 900, about north of 900 Sylvan. Did you really think that residents would look for where they are and how many acres? We're talking about 100 acres. So please tell me, what's the cost to fully develop 3,000 additional residents in terms of infrastructure, police station, property tax, and everything? What's the cost? What's your guess? Okay, if you don't have impact analysis, of course you have not done it because you have no intention to fully disclose the impact of this settlement. So please guess, how much are we talking about? I'm asking 4 Democrat Council members plus Mr. DeGregorio, because you are saying this is the best settlement that we could have made. So please tell me, or tell the resident the truth. Or your best guess. How much is it going to be?
Look, I think what happened here was, and your internet connections are working. If you look at the timeline, October 4th, you have a meeting, you blow up the town. October 5th, everyone gets their ballots. October 6th, they're in court, and there's an election going on. You know, it's all very contrived.
Oh, it's very contrived.
All very contrived. Oh, Mr.
Very
Brown,
contrived.
still awake.
It is very contrived.
Very contrived.
It's all very contrived. Look at the
Very
timeline.
contrived.
Look at what you guys are doing, and I look forward to learning more. Ms. Lee, are you still on? Are you done?
Yes, no, I am not done. I am far from being done.
Okay, all right.
So in terms of, since the people who said this settlement is the best settlement out there do not understand or even guess the cost, I'm going to tell my guess. But it's not my guess. It's actually based on the data that exists. It's going to be $100 million loss for forever in terms of property tax. Our house value will be reduced by more than a third. And we are doing this because to save lawyer fees? I mean, do you think we are stupid? Apparently you do, because you think we are stupid to believe this is the best settlement that we could have made. And the cost of losing, as I said, there are laws that are called constitutional laws. The court, this judge, cannot take away our inherent rights that are given to us. Okay, so that was my first point. Second, in terms of in terms of how it was done, this settlement was premature and you had no intention to give out real impact. And you kept saying 450 units, but now it became 600. And it's going to be, and you, why would you accept this kind of settlement terms, which will defund the planning board? And we are going to, if there's any breach, we are going to pay for their cost. The settlement terms in this settlement are beyond imagination in terms of how bad it could have been. That's why we say you sold this town to the developers who will make money out of this, and we are going to pay for all the expenses. 1,800 of us, and how can you say this is the best settlement in terms of the settlement? In terms of you are saying the settlement agreement has been entered into, but settlement is not done. We have, okay, I understand the borough is bound and planning board is bound by this settlement that you entered for the best interest of resident based on your own opinion against the strong opposition of resident. But this settlement is punitive against the resident, the planning board, and everybody involved, other than you Democratic Council members, whom I'm sure will get benefit out of this, and the developers. In terms of hold on.
Ms. Lee, are you done now?
Excuse me, I'm not done.
Yeah,
No.
well, you
No,
should
I'm
be
not
by
complete.
now, because we heard
No,
the same
I'm sorry.
speech
I
the
have
other
the
night.
floor. I know, no, this is not the same. And this is not the same. And I know you keep interrupting other residents, so please.
No, I haven't interrupted anybody but you, because you keep going on and on about the same thing. If you're not going to make any sense, let's move on.
No,
Give someone else a chance to
I'm
speak.
completely making sense.
Let the resident finish.
Residents have
I've let her speak the whole time.
Have the right to challenge. So we have the chance to overturn this settlement. And in terms of our right to challenge this settlement, you cannot take away, because settlement agreement cannot have those terms. And so since you all say you are not getting any benefit out of this settlement, I mean, can you sign something to the effect that you are not going to get any financial benefit? Council members?
If you're willing to sign that you're not going to get a benefit, I am too.
Oh,
Miss Lee,
what kind of benefit
Miss
am I going to
Lee?
get? I'm going to pay more taxes, and my house will be.
So that's my point, Miss Lee. I'm going to get the same benefits or detriments that you are, and I'm willing to sign to that same agreement.
Then why did you sign the settlement agreement?
Because I know how bad the alternative was, and apparently you do not understand it. It's okay. Listen, that's why we're here. If you don't like what we say, it's okay. There's a November election, and you can vote your piece.
Oh, of course, I will. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
In terms of not being able to understand, I do understand. And don't underestimate power and knowledge of residents. You are trying to fool us. We will not be fooled. We are going to challenge this settlement.
I'm giving you my opinion, Miss Lee. Honestly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm giving you my opinion.
You did?
You don't have to agree with it, but I respect your opinion, and you don't respect mine. That's the problem.
And the problem is that as elected officials, you failed to represent the interest of residents.
No, we didn't.
You should, and we do not care what your opinion is. This should have been voted by the resident, and this settlement should not have been approved unless 50% of the residents have approved. And we don't care about your opinion, whether you think it's best or not, because you are representing the interest. Yeah, please, don't call me.
But you're saying that 50% of the residents. That's exactly the point. I've listened to half the residents complain that we should be settling, and half the residents say that we shouldn't. And that's what we're here for, to make that decision. You don't have to agree with it. I understand that.
And you're saying half, but it's not half.
Well, we're going to find out in November, right?
And also another point is, Ms. O sold her house last year, and she really cannot represent the resident interest.
Ms. Lee, if I sell my house, which I'm going to,
Miss Lee.
Oh yeah, of
What
course.
does that
Yeah, you
mean?
have to sell.
Miss
You have to
Lee?
sell your house now.
Yes.
Councilman
Because it's
Aversa,
going
can
to
I
be, the
respond to
value is
Miss
going to be
Lee?
Of course you
reduced,
can.
and
Sorry.
you are going
Okay.
to pay so
Miss
much
Lee.
more taxes. Yeah.
Miss Lee,
Yeah.
I know you have a lot to say. I know you're an attorney. Even tonight, you said you're not a litigator, right?
Yeah, I am not.
So I don't understand your basis of wanting to fight. As I mentioned to you and the residents at the last meeting, the benefits of settlement outweighs risk, okay? Now I wanna ask you a question. What benefit are you referring to of the Democratic councilmen's, getting from this settlement? Because, you being an attorney, you should not say anything that you cannot provide supporting evidence, okay? And I don't appreciate you. It's my turn to speak. I'm speaking now. You didn't like it when you got interrupted. I don't like it when you interrupt me. When you speak about benefits that we're getting, I expect you to show all the residents what you're talking about. If you don't have anything to show, then you should not speak. Okay?
So can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason I say that is because without that kind of benefit, this settlement does not make sense for our town. Unless Democratic Council members have friends.
No people that get benefit out of this settlement. I don't know how you can support this settlement.
Okay, are you done now?
I don't see how you can't support the settlement.
Can I speak, Miss Lee?
Yes.
Okay. I've never met or spoken to Normandy. They're not my friends, okay? The reason that this settlement makes sense to me is because the benefits outweigh the risks, okay? We lost our immunity. If we had to fight and appeal and lost, the risks are much higher, much greater. And I don't understand why you don't see that, because it's very clear to me, at least with the settlement, we could control, okay, the overlays and the restrictions, okay, with 55 and over, the height restrictions. If we didn't settle and we lost, it could be high rises, just like Fort Lee North. And you should understand that. You're talking about infrastructures and expenses of the settlement. If we lost our appeal, it would have been so much worse. And going back to Mr. Mehta's question before, even he said tonight, why didn't we settle July of 2019? And you know what? In hindsight, we should have. But you know why we didn't? Because we listened to the residents. They wanted to fight, so we fought. Okay? And we got slammed. And we're not going to do that again.
Gloria, did you ever speak to former Mayor Parisi about this settlement?
What is that?
Did you ever speak to former Mayor Parisi about the settlement or about
Did
Norman?
not.
How about John Shapizi?
No, I don't even speak to John Shapizi.
What does that have to do with anything, Mario?
He's your landlord. Have you talked to him about
It's not a cross-examination, and you're not a litigating attorney anyway. So what's your point,
I think the
Mario?
residents are actually asking very good questions.
Well, let the residents ask the questions. Go text them and let them put them up there and let them ask the questions.
Hold on. What I want to ask is, look, the residents raise a great point, which is you're all telling us that this is such a great settlement, that the alternative is so terrible, but you never did an impact study because you pushed it through so fast. You can't convince anyone of that unless you.
No, Mario, that's your hearsay.
Let me finish. Unless you have an impact study, you don't know what the impact is. So how are you actually getting up there and saying this is a great settlement? Thank you, So Young. I appreciate those comments. Those are great.
Impact wouldn't have changed. We'd be stuck with this.
Okay, I wanna answer Ms. O's question. Like, how do I know as a non-litigator this settlement is bad? Because it's so bad that even a non-litigator can see, it is so bad. In terms of a risk, as I said, this trial judge is not God. And you said if we had lost the appeal, if we had tried to win, we have so many bases to win this case. Why do we need to give up our right to appeal? And you kept saying, you don't like it this either. And you said you listened to the resident last year. You should have listened to the resident this year too. That's what elected officials do. Listen to residents. You do not make decisions based on your own opinion. You are elected officials to represent resident interest.
But
So,
Ms. Lee, that was my point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my point was you're not the
don't
only.
interrupt me. If you're
But you're
sorry
not
for
the only
interrupting,
resident
then do not
speaking.
interrupt.
There are other residents who voice their opposition to you.
Because they do not fully understand the settlement impact. Because you
Well,
never
it
wanted
seems like
to
you don't
share the
understand it
impact.
either. So
Yeah.
thank you for your comments, Ms.
Thank
Lee.
you,
Thank you for
Ms.
your
Lee.
opinion.
We still need to open the regular meeting.
There was the last person, and it's Mr. Bay, Mayor.
So Ms. O just said, of course, you don't understand the impact either. Of course she doesn't. None of us do, because you didn't do an impact study.
But we
By the
do.
way, the one thing Mr. Aversa fails to mention to anyone is that he owns commercial property in the overlay zone. Okay?
Yes, I do. And I actually own a residential property as well.
He recused.
And that's okay, Mario. What's that got to do with it? Well, is it wrong to now be a capitalist? What kind of Republican are you?
No, you're part of the Englewood Cliffs Communist Party. I'm not. Here's the
Oh my
thing.
God,
Your
Mayor.
property.
That's a good one, Mario. That's your answer.
Behaving like a dictator.
Okay, this is not a back and forth.
No, hold on a second.
It's okay, Fidel. Keep
Ed
it
was
up.
saying that this is a great settlement and that he's
No,
not getting any.
I
benefit.
said it's a better settlement than
He's
what we
not
would
getting
have had.
any benefit, is what he said. But then he didn't mention that his property is in the commercial overlay zone. So Ed, you
Your
lied.
plan, his property was in that
So
same.
Mario, if you would
overlay
like
zone.
to show me the benefit and
Mr. Bay.
prove it to everyone out there, I'm more than willing to accept that.
Mr. Bay is next.
But you can't back that up, Mario.
Mr. Bay
Actually,
is next.
Ed, you didn't even vote on it.
It's
I
raised
know that. He's
interlocutor.
just talking nonsense as
You're
usual.
in a commercial zone with a.
So what's that got to do with it?
A lot.
I bought my property in a commercial zone, and I'm still in a commercial zone.
Right, but you just told the resident that you get no benefit out of this.
That's right. What's the benefit? Tell me what the benefit is.
You have
Councilman Aversa,
Mr.
you
Bay.
now, Councilman Aversa, you have a free option on your property now. An option has
Billy,
value.
excuse me, Billy. You and I had this discussion last meeting, and you sounded like an idiot.
You have a free option to convert your property now. If you
Right,
can
so-
say there's no value to that, then I
No,
don't know,
absolutely not.
You obviously know nothing, because
Right.
there's a value to an option.
That actually,
Right.
his property, there are height restrictions, there are density restrictions, and when you take those into account.
He has an option.
that-
He has an additional option on his
doesn't-
property.
But what does
So
it matter?
that makes a difference,
That doesn't
Billy.
make sense
There's
financially.
there's absolute value to that.
Wow. No wonder you do what you do for a living, Bill. It proves
That's
it.
great.
There you
That's
go.
right, because
Yeah.
when you start insulting people,
that's
Ed,
where
we
you
know
have to
you're
say-
lying.
Ed,
When you
can
start
keep referring to
developing
calling
like
me.
I do, you let me know how you make out.
So Ed, when here's the thing, you just
Can
said
we
that.
listen to the last resident and.
Hold on a second. Last week, Ed voted for a settlement, and
You
this
can
week-
go ahead and speak at the next
Let me
meeting.
finish. And this week, just now, Ed said he's selling his house.
Yeah. So what's wrong with that, Mario?
You just voted to throw this town under the bus.
That
Now
doesn't
you're
mean
selling your house.
I don't have other options to buy properties in town, genius.
You're selling your house.
So I could buy
Keep
6
calling
others.
him names. Why do you keep deferring to name calling? I don't
Yeah,
get it.
Because
Why
it
can't
works for you
Because
people who
it's
don't
late
like to
once
listen,
again.
Billy.
Why can't you just have a
So,
conversation?
Mayor,
Sounds like you have
excuse
a
me,
filthy-
Mayor, can we have the residents speak and
We'll
close
have
the
residents
caucus?
speak, But get Ed and his
It's now
filthy-
11:07 and we haven't even started our regular meeting.
We will, and if everyone who's on now could just stay on for at least the first 10 minutes of the regular meeting, I just want to give you some important information, okay? Mr. Bay? Mr. Bay is muted.
I unmuted him before.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, I'm gonna skip all these, what we just, somewhat of was I do not know how to describe sort of, you know, how people behave on these calls. Everyone. I'm just stick to the fact as I know, and I do not want anyone council responding. And I'm just going to make my statement, and I'm going to close. So, fact number one, everyone in the Democratic majority agreed that the Judge Farrington's ruling to date has egregiously punitive, and you know, if they basically make you need to do is just look at the towns around us and you know, right? So that's fact number one. Number two, our judicial system works in such a way that everyone has the right to appeal. You know, court. The lower court is to be, you know, in one's opinion. The course of overt reasonable ruling actually gives the town, in my personal view, a better chance at a higher court you go appeal, because a town of 100 residences with people should not be hit with a, you know, high city housing of 450 or whatever the number is. Number fact three, representatives of really did not do a good job in the court. They didn't call enough witnesses. It's just the process that they went through. They didn't show a fight. That just never happened. The next fact, there were repeated requests by the residents for the Democratic majority to do their best to fight in the court and inform the immaterial development in timely manner while working with the mayor and the Republican council person. You all said you would. Somehow, I don't think that's taking place. And one is that Democratic majority council, our town council, have told the residents we would not have a in the room, and we would be much better is and we were told really town and Brick Township also, and they fought to get a fair share of loan housing in New Jersey, and they fought and they won New Jersey Supreme Court. How come none of these things are to the residents? I wonder why. Next fact. The settlement was absolutely mature and took away the residents' rights to know in the worst way possible. A professional hired by the town do not know what the true cost of this settlement is. And hence, if someone tells us it's the best or better settlement, I cannot say I can honestly agree, because I do not know what the true cost is. Nobody knows. This was done in haste. This was not done with sufficient, and this took away the residents' right to know, and it deprived the residents of the proper due course that are required for something is made. Bringing high density housing at 800 Sylvan as well as elsewhere is going to put tremendous strain in our infrastructure and services. Police department, the fire department, especially our schools. Actually, we have to build a high school. We do not know, even if we end up just with the 800 Sylvan, whether or not our existing system will be able to deal with the increase in so the residents to know and due process were completely ignored. There was no transparency in the entire process. The settlement does not protect the town from future threat of housing being built in Englewood Cliffs. The large corporate headquarters in 9W North, there are for-profit organizations, but for-profit organizations, their job is to make money. So if they're going to make money by selling their and developing, selling it to developers who will profit from it, they will sell and move. Trust me, they will sell and move. So this was never the low house, and they're not wanting to have housing town. It's always been about not doing it for high density housing workplace. Now, by and I'm going to, and I do not hear from, I do apologize. It says we've heard way too many derogatory comments made to the residents by council person. So the settlement does not mean the case is done and over with. I don't practice law, but I've been intimately in litigation, very large litigation in my field. What happens to be finance? I've litigated a deal, part of a team that representing bank groups. I'm really familiar with how litigation works. The facts that I've given everyone so far should be more than enough data points for us to be able to pull together, do something about what's happening. I understand the settlement says, if you do this and do that, you're gonna, to basically owe the world a whole bunch of money, and we're gonna, drag it through the mud. All of that. That to keep the other from challenging it. I have not seen a single settlement that does not have it. Okay, so that should not be there anymore. It's there because it's a settlement. The entire process was broken, resulting in a settlement which lessens not certainty as how the town may cope with high density, how it will inevitably find our town. I'd like to encourage all the residents to put our strengths together and unite, and let us do our fair share in low income while protecting our town from the builders and high density housing. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I appreciate everyone's comment. Ed, I appreciate your candor in telling us that you're selling your house. That was
So motion to close to the public first, Mario, then we can.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay.
No.
Could we adjourn the caucus meeting and then reconvene within 5 minutes on the regular?
So moved. Make it 2 minutes, Mario. It's late.
Okay, 3.
Why are we adjourning the caucus meeting?
Yes, we have a motion by Councilman Aversa. I need a second
I second it.
to adjourn it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So for everyone who's on, if you can, just stay on for another 5 minutes of the new meeting, the regular meeting that will start in 5 minutes, so I could convey some important information to you. So we'll see you in about 3 minutes, okay?